Chapter 30:14. Do you really believe that he's the worst alchemist in the village? The white-clothed woman looked at the purple-clothed youth speechlessly. The purple-clothed youth suddenly came back to his senses. He looked at Qin Feiyang and the madman and said angrily, "You schemed against me? That's not important. What's important is that we won. If you agree to a bet, you have to admit defeat. Don't go back on your word." The madman smiled proudly. "You." The purple-clothed youth glared at the madman. This was a trap for him to jump into. "You're a man, and a man has to keep his word, right?" The madman smiled. I'll remember you." The purple-clothed youth snorted and said, "Tell me, what do you want me to do for you?" "Very simple. This time, we came to the Demon Tower to purchase some daily necessities. You just have to pay for us." The madman said. "That's it." The purple-clothed youth was stunned. The madman nodded. The purple-clothed youth smiled proudly and said generously, "Isn't that simple? I'll give you 100 million god crystals to spend as you wish." Cough cough. The white-clothed woman coughed dryly and looked at the youth. 100 million soul stones isn't enough. What? The purple-clothed youth was stunned. He looked at Qin Feiyang and the madman and asked the white-clothed woman, 100 million soul stones isn't enough. What daily necessities are they buying? 1,000 divine sound transmission stones, 1 million teleportation altar, 1 8th grade divine pill furnace, and 3 7th grade divine pill fires. The white-clothed woman smiled. The purple-clothed youth's face darkened when he heard this. He looked at Qin Feiyang and the madman and said angrily, "These are the daily necessities you mentioned?" "That's right. Divine sound transmission stones and teleportation altars are daily necessities. As for pill fires and pill furnaces, they are daily necessities for an alchemist. Don't go back on your word. Pay the bill." The madman said. "Just kill me." The purple-clothed youth's face was ashen. He thought that these daily necessities wouldn't cost much, but he didn't expect them to sell these things. What was even worse was that it wasn't just a little. 1,000 divine sound transmission stones, 1 million teleportation altars, Tier 8 divine grade cauldron, Tier 7 divine grade pill fire, and 3 more? Even if he were to be sold, he wouldn't be worth that much. "Aren't you a man?" Madman frowned. "Even if I were a man, I wouldn't be able to do it." The purple-clothed youth had a bitter expression on his face. Why was he betting for no reason? Wasn't this the same as being a sucker? Madman shook his head. "That won't do. If you can't take it out, we'll go to your house and ask for it." "Don't." The young man in purple hurriedly waved his hand. There was a trace of fear in his eyes as he muttered, "If my family finds out, they'll beat me to death." "Whether you get beaten to death or not has nothing to do with us. We only care about paying the bill," Madman said. "Then let's discuss it?" The purple-clad young man asked. "There's no room for discussion." Madman shook his head. "Please." The purple-clothed youth finally put down his pride and looked at Madman with a pitiful expression. The madman said with a cold face, "I don't buy it. Hurry up and pay up." "I." The purple-clothed youth was anxious as he looked at the white-clothed woman for help. The white-clothed woman shook her head and smiled. "This is all voluntary. I have no right to speak." "But, I." The purple-clothed youth had a bitter expression. "I say, can you be a man? If you continue like this, I'll really go to your house and ask for it." Madman said angrily. Don't. The purple-clothed youth hurriedly waved his hand and said dejectedly, "Wait here. I'll go home and ask for it myself." Madman said, "Then don't think of running away." "What kind of person am I?" The purple-clothed youth roared and turned to run out. The white-clothed woman shook her head and smiled. This is the vigor of youth. If he kept a low profile, would he have gotten into such a situation? Madman glanced at Qin Feiyang and asked, "Old Qin, do you really think he won't run away?" "Old Qin?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. "If I don't call you Old Qin, should I call you Little Qin?" Madman rolled his eyes. Qin Feiyang was speechless. The white-clothed woman looked at the two of them and sighed. This time he'll really be forced into a dead end. "What do you mean?" Qin Feiyang and Madman were slightly stunned as they looked at the white-clothed woman suspiciously. Although he's the son of the Su family's patriarch, and the Su family is also the largest wealthy family in Tianfeng City, Due to some reasons, he wasn't valued by the Su family. It's also because of this that he's working so hard to refine pills and enter the demon hall. The white-clothed woman said. As the son of the patriarch, he's actually not valued? Madman was stunned. The situation in his family is very complicated. His father has 2 women. The first madam is the first wife, and the second madam is the second. This young Master Su is the second madam's child. But this second madam was born poor and died early. The first madam is different. Her family is also a wealthy family. The Su family sometimes has to rely on them. The first madam also gave birth to a son. This person is young Master Su's elder brother, and is known as the Su family's eldest young master. And many years ago, he relied on his extraordinary cultivation talent to enter the demon hall. Because of this, the Su family's patriarch likes this eldest young master very much, and naturally treats this young Master Su more and more coldly. And the first madam also doesn't like this young Master Su very much, and often adds fuel to the fire in the Su family's patriarch's ears. So now, the Su family's patriarch not only doesn't like this young Master Su, but also somewhat hates him. From time to time, he would curse and even punch and kick him sometimes. Speaking of which, he's also a pitiful child. The white-clothed woman shook her head and sighed. No wonder I found that although he's a little arrogant, he seems to be a little different from the average hedonistic son. Qin Feiyang nodded in realization. Who doesn't want to be valued by others? Calling him a hedonistic son is still far from it. Anyway, in my eyes he's a good child. The white-clothed woman smiled slightly. Qin Feiyang said with a faint smile. Since that's the case, let's forget about buying a single item. The white-clothed woman looked at Qin Feiyang in surprise. Qin Feiyang laughed. As I said just now, I just wanted to teach him a lesson. Immediately, the white-clothed woman couldn't help but look at Qin Feiyang in a new light. It was rare to see such a young man. Qin Feiyang said. I'll have to trouble you to prepare the things I need. All right. The white-clothed woman nodded and looked at the door. Come in. A staff member pushed open the door and entered. The white-clothed woman gave an order, and the staff member immediately went to prepare. The white-clothed woman returned to her seat and smiled. Please sit. Qin Feiyang put away the pill fire and pill furnace, and sat opposite the white-clothed woman with the madman. The white-clothed woman made tea and smiled. I still don't know the names of the 2 little brothers. Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang didn't hide anything. The matter of the heavenly cloud sea didn't spread out, so not many people knew about him other than the upper echelons of the Demon Palace and the Blood Palace. The white-clothed woman nodded and looked at the madman. What about you? Madman. The madman spoke. The white-clothed woman was stunned. The madman said, If you don't like it, then call me Madman Mo. The corner of the white-clothed woman's mouth twitched slightly. Was there a difference? Qin Feiyang laughed. Tower Master, you may not know, but we all call him Madman. The white-clothed woman couldn't help but shake her head. What kind of young people were these? They didn't use a good name, but had to call him such unsightly nicknames. The white-clothed woman poured 2 cups of tea, and pushed them in front of Qin Feiyang and the madman. She asked with a smile. Are the 2 of you interested in joining my demon palace? Not interested. The madman didn't even think about it, and shook his head. The white-clothed woman's expression froze, and she hurriedly said, Listen carefully, I said demon palace. I'm not deaf, of course I know it's demon palace, but I'm not interested. The madman pursed his lips. The thought of Elder Hu made him angry. The white-clothed woman didn't know what to say for a moment. The Demon Palace is a super force of the Eastern continent. It's our honor to be able to take a fancy to us, but we all like to be free and don't want to be restrained. Qin Feiyang smiled. All right, then I won't force you. The white-clothed woman nodded with a regretful expression. But in her opinion, the madman wasn't very important. The main thing was Qin Feiyang's talent in alchemy, to be able to refine pills with 4 dragon-shaped core qi at such a young age. If he entered the Demon Palace, and was properly groomed, he would definitely become a famous alchemy master in the future. What a pity! The other party didn't seem to have any feelings for their Demon Palace. But it was strange that there was actually someone in the Eastern continent who wasn't interested in their demon palace? One had to know. No matter how big the famous family, or how powerful the person was, they would all be proud of entering the demon palace. Not interested. This was the first time she had encountered such a situation. Not long after, the staff member came with an interspatial ring. The white-clothed woman gestured for him to hand the interspatial ring directly to Qin Feiyang. After Qin Feiyang checked them one by one, he also took out soul stones to pay the bill. To him, soul stones were just a number, no matter how many there were. Then, Qin Feiyang and the madman didn't stay any longer and left the demon palace. The staff member smiled and said, "Tower Master, this is a big customer." Yes, so many soul stones, and he didn't even blink. Ordinary people can't do that. The white-clothed woman nodded and pondered for a while before instructing, "Send someone to investigate immediately and see if there is a person called Qin Feiyang in this area of Tianfeng City." Okay. The staff member nodded and then turned to leave quickly. Outside, after walking out of the demon palace, Qin Feiyang and the madman started strolling on the streets. Qin Feiyang transmitted his voice with a smile. "This tower master is not bad, right?" "She is much better than the tower master of Eastern Mountain City." The madman nodded. "That's why I said that a lot of things vary from person to person. We can't condemn everyone just because there's a clown." Qin Feiyang said. The madman was stunned and frowned. "From what you said, you seem to have a good impression of the demon palace. Whether it is Elder Hua, Chu Yun, or this tower master, they all showed that the demon palace is not as evil as its name suggests. So we might as well get in touch with the demon palace more. This is also good for us. After all, it's not that easy to deal with the blood hall. Not to mention that Ice Dragon is standing behind the blood hall." Qin Feiyang said. "This beast, sooner or later I will skin it alive." The madman snorted coldly. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. If it was that easy, they wouldn't be holed up in the eastern continent, and would have killed their way to the blood hall's headquarters in the western continent. Chapter 30:15. Just as Qin Feiyang and Frenzy were chatting, a few young men and women hurriedly ran over from behind. "Hurry, it's about to start. Don't let it be like last time. By the time we arrive, it's already been snatched away." One of the young men walked quickly and urged his companion beside him. Qin Feiyang and Frenzy looked at them suspiciously, but didn't pay much attention. But gradually, there were more and more people, and all of them were rushing in the same direction. They all looked like they were on fire. Moreover, they were all dressed in gorgeous clothes and seemed to be rich and powerful young men. What's going on? Frenzy was suspicious. Qin Feiyang also looked at this scene with a puzzled expression. A young man in black passed by the two of them. Qin Feiyang hurriedly grabbed the arm of the young man in black and asked in confusion, "Brother, what's going on? Don't you know?" The young man in black was slightly stunned and looked at Qin Feiyang in surprise. Qin Feiyang shook his head. The young man in black sized up Qin Feiyang and Frenzy and said with a smile, "Then this should be your first time in Tianfeng City, right?" "Yes." The two of them nodded. "There's something you don't know. Our Tianfeng City." At this point, the young man in black looked at the people around him and asked, "Why don't we talk as we walk?" "Okay." Qin Feiyang and Frenzy nodded and followed the young man in black and walked quickly along the crowd. The young man in black said, "You two might not know, but our Tianfeng City has a very famous place." "Famous?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. "This place is called Tianyue Restaurant." Speaking of Tianyue Tower, there is no one in Tianfeng City who does not know of it. Because not only is the owner beautiful, but they also have a kind of wine called Drunken Immortal. The young man in black couldn't help but light up as he spoke. Wine. Qin Feiyang was stunned and immediately slowed down. Because to him, not to mention wine, even if it was a peerless divine brew, he wouldn't be interested. That's not right. This immortal intoxication shouldn't be called a fine wine. It should be called a divine brew. The black-clothed young man changed his words again. He was so intoxicated that he didn't even notice Qin Feiyang, who slowed down his pace. "I'm not interested in divine wine either." Qin Feiyang shook his head. "Besides, what kind of divine wine could a mere restaurant in Tianfeng City have? This was because Win City was only a small city in the eastern continent. This Tianyu restaurant. The black-robed young man walked further and further away. Suddenly, he turned around and looked to his side. Where is he? He looked around suspiciously and didn't see Qin Feiyang and the madman. He pouted and said, "How rude." They didn't even say anything when they left. After saying that, he started running towards Tianyu Tower. In the crowd behind, Lunatic looked at the people who were constantly swarming towards Heavenly Joy Restaurant and said in disdain, "I think these people are just pretending to drink. They are here for the Tower Master of Heavenly Joy Restaurant. No matter how pretty she is, I'm not interested." Qin Feiyang shook his head. "Of course you're not interested. You're already married, but I'm different. Right now I'm still all alone." The madman pouted. "Didn't you say you don't care about these things?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. "When did you hear me say I don't care? I didn't say it before because there was no girl in the ancient world that caught my eye." The madman glanced coldly at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang was slightly taken aback. "So you're saying that you're going to settle your lifelong matter in the Tianyu domain? If there's such a chance, of course, it would be for the best." The madman chuckled. "Even so, what does it have to do with me?" Qin Feiyang snorted coldly. "What do you mean?" The madman frowned. "Are we brothers?" Qin Feiyang didn't answer. "Aren't you talking nonsense? Of course we're brothers." The madman stared speechlessly at Qin Feiyang. "Since we're brothers, why weren't you present when I got married?" Qin Feiyang said. The madman was stunned and smiled. "Isn't it because I'm looking for the mystery of my origin in hell? The mystery of my origin is very important. But isn't the big day of my brother's marriage important?" Qin Feiyang pouted. Yes. I really didn't expect this. But you don't have to be so calculative. Besides, you guys haven't consummated your marriage yet, right?" The madman chuckled. "Isn't that just a matter of time?" Qin Feiyang said. "Without consummation, it can only be in name." The madman shook his head. "Even if it's in name, I'm someone with a wife now. As for you, I don't even know where you are." Qin Feiyang looked at him with disdain. "Damn. Are you deliberately provoking me?" The madman said angrily. "What? I'm just provoking you. If you don't like it, why don't you find one for me to take a look?" Qin Feiyang smiled proudly. "You only care about the opposite sex." The madman glared fiercely at Qin Feiyang and dragged Qin Feiyang. Let's go to Heavenly Joy Building and see how beautiful the owner is. So many men are fighting to be the first to go there." "Not going." Qin Feiyang shook his head. "You." The madman frowned, but suddenly his eyes rolled and he chuckled. "Don't forget your promise to the five-clawed golden dragon." Qin Feiyang was taken aback and asked suspiciously, "What promise did I make to him?" "Wine. What did you promise him when you asked for the 100 jars of heavenly immortal wine? Do you want me to remind you now?" The madman chuckled. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly and nodded. "All right, let's go take a look." "That's right." The madman laughed. After passing through several streets, Qin Feiyang and the madman finally arrived at the Heavenly Joy Building that everyone was flocking to. This was a restaurant that was 10 stories high. It had an ancient style, and it was gorgeous yet elegant. Above the main entrance, there was a plaque with the words Heavenly Joy Building engraved on it. The words were beautiful and fresh, revealing a lively aura. It was obviously written by a woman. At this moment, there were already more than 100 people gathered outside the door. Almost all of them were young talents with extraordinary temperaments. There were 4 waiters at the door, welcoming them in one by one. Qin Feiyang and the madman also followed the rules and stood behind the crowd in line. A moment later, it was finally their turn. One of the waiters glanced at the restaurant hall and looked at Qin Feiyang and the madman, as well as the people behind them, and apologized. "Sorry, today's restaurant is full. Please come earlier next time." "What? It's full again. I've already come 5 or 6 times, but I've been stopped outside every time. I'm even more pitiful. This is already the 7th time. It seems that next time, I'll have to come earlier." When the group of people heard this, they immediately turned around and left in disappointment. Qin Feiyang looked at the madman and shrugged. "See, it's not that I don't want to accompany you. It's that they won't let you in." I'm really sorry. Hearing Qin Feiyang's words, although he knew that Qin Feiyang was talking to his companion, the waiter still hurriedly apologized. All right. The madman sighed and was about to turn around and leave. I thought you guys wouldn't come. Come. I happen to be alone, there are 2 empty seats. But suddenly, a familiar voice came from inside. Qin Feiyang and the madman were stunned. They looked up and saw that it was the black-clothed youth from before. We meet again, it's really fate. Qin Feiyang smiled. The black-clothed youth walked out and looked at the waiter with a smile. They are my friends. The waiter retreated to the side and bowed. The 2 young masters, please come in. Thank you. Qin Feiyang cupped his hands and smiled, then entered the Heavenly Joy building with the madman. They followed the black-clothed youth to the left corner of the hall. Where did you guys go? The black-clothed youth was suspicious. The madman coughed and complained. Isn't it because you walked too fast? I couldn't even catch up with you. That's my fault. The black-clothed youth was stunned. Haha. The madman grinned and scanned the hall full of guests. Then he looked upstairs and asked curiously, Brother, there are people upstairs too? Definitely. And the people upstairs are basically the children of big families. They all made reservations in advance. The black-clothed youth said. Qin Feiyang looked at the black-clothed youth and smiled. Brother, you also look extraordinary. You should be from a big family too. Me. The black-clothed youth was slightly stunned and shook his head. I'm not from a big family. I'm just a very ordinary person. Qin Feiyang smiled. Such a young ordinary person can have a half-step undying cultivation? The black-clothed youth's expression froze. He looked at Qin Feiyang and said, You can see through my cultivation? Qin Feiyang was hiding his cultivation, so the black-clothed youth couldn't see through him. Although the black-clothed youth restrained his aura and looked very low-key, he didn't hide his cultivation. So Qin Feiyang could see through him at a glance. Qin Feiyang smiled, and a trace of divine power appeared in his palm. However, it was like a flash in the pan, and was immediately restrained. Although it was just a flash, the black-clothed youth still clearly caught it and smiled. It seems that the 2 brothers are also not ordinary people. Same to you. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. At this time, a waiter came and asked with a smile, Young masters, what do you need? Immortal drunken wine, of course. The black-clothed youth smiled and stretched out his index finger. He looked at the waiter and said, We'll each have a jar. As for the rest, you can do as you see fit. Okay. The waiter nodded and then turned around and left quickly. The black-clothed youth looked at Qin Feiyang and the madman and smiled. The 2 brothers came to the Heavenly Joy building. So you should be wine lovers. It's all right. Qin Feiyang nodded. The black-clothed youth said. Then I wonder what the 2 brothers' names are? Qin Feiyang. Madman Mo Qin Feiyang and the madman spoke one after another. The madman's surname was from his foster father. His foster father was called Mo Wuyuan, so he also had the surname Mo Madman Mo? The black-clothed youth looked at the madman in astonishment and smiled bitterly. Brother, your name is really different. What about you? The madman asked. Yin Ziang. The black-clothed youth smiled. Yin Ziang, Qin Feiyang muttered. There was no information about this person in Luo Tianshan's memory. However, it was not strange. The East Continent was vast and had countless people. Even a supergiant like Elder Hu could not know everyone, let alone a small figure like Luo Tianshan. However, he could conclude that Yun Ziang was definitely not simple, because he could faintly feel a trace of dangerous aura from Yun Ziang. Chapter 30:16. A moment later, the waiter of the restaurant walked over with 3 pots of wine and 5 dishes. The wine pot was about the size of an adult's palm. It was crystal clear and filled with wine. The wine cup was small and exquisite. It could only hold 2 cups at most. It was made of a kind of snow-white jade, and was exceptionally beautiful. Yunzing couldn't wait to open the wine pot and pour a cup. He put it at the tip of his nose and smelled it. His eyes suddenly lit up. Immediately after, he put it to his mouth and tasted it carefully. Qin Feiyang and Frenzy looked at each other and poured a cup each. Not bad. Frenzy nodded. This wine was almost on par with the immortal drunk. Qin Feiyang secretly laughed. I can get a few jars for little gold. You want to send him away with a few jars? Frenzy rolled his eyes. With the 5-clawed golden dragon's alcohol tolerance, dozens of jars were not enough. Yun Xiang also nodded at this time and praised. The wine is pure and transparent, full and mellow. The taste is delicate, and the fragrance is long. Not bad, but... Speaking of this, Yun Xiang couldn't help but frown. But what? Qin Feiyang and Frenzy looked at him suspiciously. Yun Xiang said. The only flaw is that there seems to be a little bitterness in it. Bitterness? Qin Feiyang and Frenzy were slightly stunned. Why didn't they taste it? So, the two tasted it again, and still didn't find the so-called bitterness. Looking at the puzzled faces of Qin Feiyang and Frenzy, Yun Xiang smiled and said, The two of you are obviously not wine lovers. Why do you say so? Qin Feiyang was curious. Wine is the same as people. What is tasted is not the wine, but the inside hidden inside. This wine, if classified according to grade, can be considered a top-grade wine, but it is still a long way from being a divine wine. And in this wine, there is a bitterness that ordinary people can't taste. If I'm not wrong, this is tears. Yun Xiang said. Tears. Qin Feiyang and Frenzy looked at each other. Not bad. I think this winemaker must have accidentally shed tears when he was making wine, and mixed them with the wine. Furthermore, this winemaker is someone with a story. She felt very helpless and sad. Thus, there was a trace of bitterness in her tears. Yun Xiang smiled faintly. You can taste so much from wine. Qin Feiyang was surprised. Of course. Tasting wine is also tasting people. There's a saying that goes, one's character is judged by one's drunkenness. Yun Xiang smiled. Qin Feiyang smiled in admiration. Brother Yun's understanding of wine is truly beyond my reach. You flatter me. Wine is indeed a very wonderful thing. It also has its own culture, but you must not drink too much. Yun Xiang smiled. Frenzy didn't know, but Qin Feiyang really didn't understand. Because he didn't like to drink, he didn't know the so-called wine culture, and he didn't know what wine tasting was like tasting people. But when it came to drinking tea, he had his own insights. Humans. Everyone had their own hobbies and couldn't be forced. At this time, a few young men at the next table pulled a passing waiter and asked, Where's your floor master? Yes. We've almost finished drinking this wine. Why haven't we seen your floor master appear yet? Hurry up and ask her to come out and play a song for us to liven things up. A few young men at another table followed suit. Looking at them, their eyes were full of expectation. I'm sorry. The floor master has something to do today, and will come out later. The waiter smiled apologetically. Something to do? This is your fault. Since you have something to do, you should say it earlier. Aren't you making us wait? As soon as the waiter's words came out, it immediately aroused the dissatisfaction of many people. Sorry, it's our Tianhua floor's fault. Please calm down, everyone. The floor master will come out soon. The waiter hurriedly apologized and smiled apologetically. These people are really here for the floor master. Madman shook his head. It's human nature to not be intoxicated by the wine, but by the beauty. Yun Xiang chuckled. Qin Feiyang asked curiously, Brother Yin, have you seen this floor master before? No. To be honest, this is my first time in Tianfeng City. However, according to what I know, this floor master is said to be an outstanding beauty. Yun Xiang said with a smile. Legend. Qin Feiyang was stunned. The reason why it's a legend is that not many people have seen her real face. Yun Xiang smiled. That's really mysterious. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. After all, it's very difficult for a woman to gain a foothold in a place without a background. So under certain conditions, maintaining a little mystery can make people wary. Yun Xiang said with a smile. Makes sense. Qin Feiyang nodded. Dong. At this moment, a crisp and pleasant sound of a zither suddenly sounded, interrupting the conversation between the three. At the same time, it also broke the atmosphere of the restaurant. Everyone looked up and saw a rain of light sprinkling down from above. A graceful figure, along with the rain of light, slowly landed on the top of the hall. It was a woman. She was about 1.75 meters tall, with a tall and exquisite figure, wearing a snow-white long dress. Her black hair was like a waterfall, and under the light rain, she looked like a fairy descending to the mortal world. Her face was covered with a thin veil, and her crystal-clear facial features were faintly discernible, hazy, adding a sense of mystery. As soon as this woman appeared, Tianyue restaurant quieted down. Most of the men had a trace of amazement in their eyes. And in front of the woman, there was a white zither floating. The zither was like an ivory carving, shining with treasure light, exquisite beyond compare. The zither strings were like silk, flowing with light and vibrant colors, and the lingering sound was like the sound of nature, echoing in the restaurant for a long time. I'm sorry to have kept everyone waiting. The woman stood above and smiled apologetically to everyone. Her voice was ethereal, as smooth as a pearl, clear and pleasant to the ears. It's fine. Those who were chattering before seemed to be very magnanimous in front of this woman. In that case, like in the past, I'll play a song to liven things up. The woman smiled and sat in the void. With a wave of her jade-like hand, the zither landed in front of her, and her slender fingers began to play unhurriedly. Immediately, a pleasant sound of the zither reverberated in Tianyue restaurant. The sound of the zither was as slow as flowing water, untainted by the world, making people feel as if they were in the midst of green mountains and clear waters, and could not help but relax and calm down. Not to mention others, even Qin Feiyang and Frenzy were attracted by the sound of the zither. They were no strangers to the sound of the zither. For example, Qin Rushuang and Miss Fairy could play the zither well. But in front of this woman, they seemed to be inferior. After the song ended, everyone seemed to be unsatisfied and looked at the woman expectantly. That's all for today. Next time, I'll play for everyone. The woman bowed and floated away. Wait! But at this moment, a shout was heard. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice and saw a young man in purple walking out of a room on the 3rd floor. Behind the young man, there were a few young men in gorgeous clothes with extraordinary temperaments. In addition, there was an old man in black. This old man was stooped and stood beside the young man. His aura was restrained and seemed extremely deep. The woman stopped, turned to look at the young man, and said with a smile, "Young Master Wang, what can I do for you? I've admired you for a long time. Can you give me face and let me see your true appearance?" The young man in purple cupped his hands and smiled. Hearing this, the others also looked forward to it. The young man in purple pointed to everyone and said with a smile, "You've seen it, right? My request is also the wish of all the friends present." The woman scanned the crowd and shook her head. "Young Master Wang, I'm sorry. I'm ugly and I'm afraid of scaring you and everyone." "That's not right. Mrs. Beauty has long been known in Tianfeng City. How could you be an ugly person?" The young man in purple said, "It's just a rumor. Don't believe it." The woman shook her head. The young man in purple said, "I can't just listen to your side of the story. Whether I'm ugly or not, I'll only know after I see it." "Young Master Wang, please don't force me." The woman sighed. "Force me? Do you think that we came to Tianyue restaurant just for this bullshit drunken immortal? Stop trying to be mysterious. Today, I must see your face and see if it's ugly or charming." When he said the word charming, young Master Wang's eyes revealed a trace of a lecherous smile. "Young Master Wang, please respect yourself." The woman said with a trace of disgust in her tone. "Respect myself? It's not like you don't know my identity. If I really wanted to target you, would you have been able to stay in Tianfeng City for so long? I'll ask you one last time. Are you going to give me face or not?" The young man's eyes flashed with a trace of coldness. The lunatic asked suspiciously, "Who is this person? He seems to be very impressive." "He's the son of the city lord of Tianfeng City. His full name is Wang Feng. He's a famous profligate son here. The men behind him are all disciples of the major families in Tianfeng City. They follow Wang Feng and seek pleasure all day long." Yin Xiang smiled faintly. "I see." The lunatic nodded in realization. Profligate son? This type of person was indeed disgusting. Relying on their family background, they did not do proper work, and were arrogant and domineering. If they did not have such a family background, what were they? It was too flattering to say that they were bugs. The woman remained silent. "Brother Wang, can you do it? No matter what, You're the son of the city lord. The entire Tianfeng city belongs to your family. But now, a mere woman in a restaurant doesn't even care about you? The young men behind Wang Feng could not help but jeer. Wang Feng's face turned cold and instantly felt embarrassed. He stared at the woman and smiled sinisterly. It seems like you don't intend to give me face. Young Master Wang. The woman wanted to say something. Shut up. Wang Feng raised his hand and interrupted the woman. Do you know the consequences of angering me? As Wang Feng's words left his mouth, the old man in black, who had been standing silently beside Wang Feng, took a step forward. His restrained aura surged out. Perfection Undying Realm. Chapter 30:17. Grand Perfection Undead Stage. Yun Xiang's pupils constricted as he transmitted his voice. Brothers, prepare to retreat. Retreat. Frenzy looked at Yun Xiang in shock. We can't afford to offend the people from the City Lord Mansion. Besides, this Tianyue restaurant has nothing to do with us. There's no need to get into trouble. Yun Xiang secretly said. Are you still a man? A woman being bullied. Can you just sit back and watch? What is the City Lord Mansion? I hate this kind of playboy the most. Frenzy snorted. As the foster son of Mo Wu Yuan and the grandson of the Great Elder, he also had the capital to be a playboy. But was he like that? No. For example, Qin Feiyang, as the son of the great Qin Emperor, actually had the capital to be a playboy. But did he? Not at all. For a person, family background wasn't very important. What was important was one's character. Don't think about relying on your family. You have to rely on yourself. Looking at the woman again. Seeing the old man in black make a move, the woman's face changed as she hurriedly called out, Young Master Wang. But Wang Feng didn't give the woman a chance to speak and shouted, Tear off her veil for this young master. Shua. The old man in black suddenly took a step forward and landed in front of the veil. His dark eyes were like a pair of eagle eyes, emitting a sharp light. The woman panicked. But at this moment, a figure suddenly appeared in front of the woman. Yun Xiang was stunned. Qin Feiyang's mouth twitched slightly. That's right. The person who appeared in front of the woman was Frenzy. This fellow really abhorred evil, as if it were an enemy. However, he was powerless to stop what Frenzy wanted to do, because Frenzy's character was like this. Once he was serious, even if the emperor came down, it would be useless. At the same time, the others were also slightly stunned. Facing Wang Feng, there was actually someone who dared to come out and help. Was he stupid? Is the City Lord Mansion someone you can offend? At the same time, the old man in black looked at Frenzy who suddenly appeared, and a murderous intent flashed in his eyes as he sent a palm towards Frenzy. Frenzy's hand like an eagle's claw, directly grabbing the old man in black's wrist. The physical body and strength of a supreme being was no joke. Let's take divine artifacts as an example. Lower grade, middle grade, upper grade, extreme grade, pinnacle grade, legendary grade, and supreme grade. There were a total of 7 levels. Let's talk about cultivation. Half-step, initial, minor, great, perfection, and finally perfection undying. There were only 6 minor realms. Moreover, the madman himself was undying for half a year. There was only a difference of 5 minor realms between him and the black-clothed old man. Therefore, even the black-robed old man at the perfection imperishable realm couldn't compete with madman in terms of physical strength. Immediately, the black-robed old man's arm was forcibly held in the air by the madman's terrifying strength. What? The black-clothed old man's pupils constricted. We're in public. What are you trying to do? Madman chuckled. The black-robed old man's eyes turned cold. Divine power surged out and shook off the madman's hand. He retreated to Wang Feng's side and said in a low voice, This person cannot be underestimated. Wang Feng's face was dark as he stared at the mad scientist. Brat, I love to deal with hedonistic sons like you. So if you know what's good for you, scram immediately. The mad scientist looked at Wang Feng and laughed. Courting death. Killing intent surged in Wang Feng's eyes. As the son of the city lord, who dared to speak to him like this? No one dared. This was the first time. Kill him. With a roar, the black-robed old man took another step forward. Courting death. The mad scientist's eyes flashed fiercely. The blood demon domain instantly opened and enveloped the black-robed old man. Immediately, the black-robed old man's cultivation fell all the way to the half-step imperishable realm. What? The black-robed old man's expression changed. At this moment, the mad scientist took a step forward and landed in front of the black-robed old man. He grabbed the black-robed old man's head. With a crack, as the mad scientist exerted force, the black-robed old man's head exploded like a watermelon. The divine soul also shattered. Looking at this scene, everyone in the restaurant was shocked. Not to mention this person's guts. Just his methods alone could kill a perfection imperishable realm expert. What was this? Everyone looked at the blood demon domain in shock. It could actually deprive the opponent of 5 minor realms of cultivation? Powerful. Somewhere in the void, an old man with fiery red hair was hidden. Looking at the mad scientist's performance, there was a trace of shock in his eyes. If Qin Feiyang and the mad scientist saw him, they would definitely recognize the old man at a glance. Because he was Elder Hua, the mad scientist's strength not only shocked everyone present, but even Yin Xiang was shocked. He looked at Qin Feiyang and smiled bitterly. Your friend's methods are a bit scary. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. What was this? If this guy really attacked with his full strength, slaughtering the entire Tianfeng city would be a piece of cake. Looking at the mad scientist, he looked at Wang Feng with a mocking expression and said, Kid, are you still arrogant? Wang Feng trembled. The disciples of the large families behind him were also filled with fear. The mad scientist said with disdain, Why don't you go and ask around, which playboy dares to be arrogant in front of me? This was the truth. Just like those playboys in the northern region, who didn't see the mad scientist as if they saw the devil. When Wang Feng heard this, he was both terrified and angry. What an eyesore scram. The mad scientist waved his hand in disgust. Okay, just you wait. Wang Feng left behind a ruthless sentence and fled in a sorry state. The disciples of the large families naturally didn't dare to stay any longer and ran out in fear. What a disappointment. The mad scientist pursed his lips and with a wave of his hand, he destroyed the old man's body, not leaving a single drop of blood. Thank you, young master. The girl seemed to have recovered at this moment and hurriedly looked at the mad scientist gratefully. A small matter. The mad scientist grinned and landed in the hall, sitting next to Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang said, Are you satisfied? The mad scientist said indifferently, What can I be angry about? It's just that I don't like the look of it. You don't like the look of it, but it also brought us trouble. See for yourself. Qin Feiyang looked at the others in the restaurant. The mad scientist turned his head and saw everyone looking at the three of them from time to time, whispering about something. Waiter, the bill. Suddenly, a young man at the next table quickly paid the bill and left. Bill. Following closely, the people at the other tables also paid the bill and hurriedly left Heavenly Joy Restaurant. Not long after, in the entire Heavenly Joy Restaurant, only Qin Feiyang's group, the waiter, and the girl were left. This is all because we are afraid of getting them involved. Yin Xiang shook his head. Then you? Aren't you afraid? The mad scientist looked at Yin Xiang with a playful expression. Of course I'm afraid. But seeing how confident you two brothers are, I'm even more curious. Where is your confidence coming from? Yin Xiang smiled faintly. The mad scientist's eyes flashed and he said meaningfully, It's not that we have confidence, it's you. What confidence can I have? If I really had confidence, I wouldn't have said to retreat before. Yin Xiang waved his hand. At this time, accompanied by a burst of fragrance, the girl landed in front of the three of them and apologized. I'm sorry for implicating the three young masters. It's fine. But if you really want to thank us, why don't you play another song for us? Yin Xiang smiled. Cough cough. Brother Yin, it doesn't seem like you're the one who helped us. Qin Feiyang coughed dryly. This, Yin Xiang smiled awkwardly and then said, It's fate that we met. What's there to distinguish between us? Miss, don't you think so? The girl looked at the three of them helplessly and sighed. The city lord's mansion can't afford to offend them. The three of you should leave quickly. If there's a chance in the future, I'll play a song for the three of you alone. Don't. There's no time like the present, let's do it now. Yin Ziang said. Qin Feiyang and the mad scientist looked at each other. It seemed that this person was also someone who wasn't afraid of anything. The girl looked at Yin Ziang, and then at Qin Feiyang and the mad scientist, who didn't seem to have any intention of leaving. She nodded and said, "All right then." Finished speaking, the girl turned around and walked to the table beside her. She asked the waiter to clean up the table, and then placed the zither on the table. She sat beside it and began to play. The sound of the zither was still as slow as flowing water, but there was a trace of gratitude towards Qin Feiyang and the other two. Yin Ziang closed his eyes and listened to the beautiful zither music. He shook his head and said with a smile, "The accompaniment of the zither, good wine and delicious food, how delightful." Then, Yin Ziang opened his eyes and raised his cup to Qin Feiyang and the mad scientist. He said with a smile, "Brothers to our fate, cheers." Qin Feiyang and the mad scientist looked at each other and smiled. This person was quite interesting. The eastern continent was also full of crouching tigers and hidden dragons. The mad scientist's eyes flashed and he transmitted his voice. "Old Qin, let's test this person's strength later." "Why?" Qin Feiyang was suspicious. The mad scientist secretly said, "Don't you think that he seems too enthusiastic?" "I'm sure a little." Qin Feiyang secretly smiled. But thinking about it carefully, there shouldn't be any problem with this person. Because when they met, it was by chance on the street. And it was also him who took the initiative to stop this person and ask about the situation. If the other party really had a purpose, then he must have taken the initiative to approach them. Besides, at that time, when they slowed down, this person didn't turn around to look for them. This meant that this person's enthusiasm might be due to his personality. But the mad scientist's concerns couldn't be ignored. After all, the blood hall had already targeted them, so they had to be on guard. A moment later, the song came to an end. The woman put away the zither, got up, looked at Qin Feiyang and the other two, and said with a smile, "The three of you can leave now, right? If we leave, what will you do? If the City Lord Mansion can't find us, they will definitely find trouble with you." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. The woman sighed. "If it's a blessing, it's not a disaster. If it's a disaster, it can't be avoided. You are a woman. Why do you have to come out in public?" Yin Ziang looked at the woman suspiciously. "Why else? Everything in the world is for survival." The woman smiled slightly. "Everything in the world is for survival," Yin Ziang murmured and said with a smile. "It seems that you are really a person with a story." The woman was slightly taken aback, shook her head and said faintly, "Who in this world doesn't have a story?" There seemed to be a trace of sadness in her eyes. "That's true." Yin Ziang nodded and smiled. Chapter 30:18. Qin Feiyang also agreed with the conversation between the two of them. Everyone had a story. The only difference was that some stories were joyous while others were sad. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang looked at the woman and said with a smile, "Miss, I have a presumptuous request." "Please say it." The woman smiled slightly. Qin Feiyang asked, "Can you sell me some of your wine?" The woman was stunned and asked, "How much do you need?" Qin Feiyang said with a smile, "Not much, just 100 jars. The woman was stunned. Yin Ziang also looked at Qin Feiyang speechlessly. "What's wrong?" Qin Feiyang was puzzled. "Brother, the better the wine, the harder it is to brew. Take this immortal drunken wine for example. Although it is only a superb wine, the brewing process is quite long. Otherwise, Tianyue restaurant would not sell it for a limited time. You want 100 jars at once. Even if Tianyue restaurant has ready-made ones, they can't give it to you, because they have to sell it to other customers." Yin Ziang said. "Is it so troublesome to brew wine?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. "You are a typical noob. The process of brewing wine is extremely complicated. It is undoubtedly more troublesome to brew a superb wine." Yin Ziang shook his head. Qin Feiyang looked at the woman and said with a faint smile, "Okay, take it that I said that." No. I should be grateful that the three young masters helped me out." The woman quickly waved her hand, and then turned to look at the waiter standing at the door and said, Go to the wine cellar and get 100 jars. Yes. One of the waiter nodded and immediately ran into the back hall of the restaurant. Thank you, miss. Do you want to pay with divine crystals or soul stones? Qin Feiyang asked. No, just take it as a thank you gift. The woman smiled slightly. Is this okay? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Why not? Do you dislike it? The woman smiled. No. Qin Feiyang waved his hand. Yun Xiang looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously and asked, Brother Qin, I don't think you're interested in this kind of thing. Why do you want to buy so many? Brother Yin, there's something you don't know. Although I personally don't like drinking, I have a companion who likes it very much. This is all prepared for him. Qin Feiyang smiled. I see. Then your companion is really lucky to have met a friend like you. Yin Xiang chuckled. Very soon, the shop assistant walked over with a Qingquan pouch in his hand. Young master, please accept it. The woman took the cosmos sack and handed it to Qin Feiyang. Thank you. Qin Feiyang checked it and sent it to the Black Tortoise world. He thought to himself, Little Jean, this is for you. What is it? The five-clawed golden dragon grabbed the Qingquan bag suspiciously. Won't you know if you take a look? Qin Feiyang smiled. Hearing this, the five-clawed golden dragon was overjoyed. He immediately took out a sigh and gulped it down. That's not right. But suddenly, he frowned. What's wrong? Qin Feiyang was startled. This is similar to the immortal wine. Is there nothing better than the immortal wine? The five-clawed golden dragon said. Just be content. Tianfeng City is just a small city. It's not easy to find such a good wine. Qin Feiyang was speechless. He actually despised it. All right, I'll make do. If there's a chance, you must get me some divine wine. The five-clawed golden dragon chuckled. Sure. Qin Feiyang replied helplessly. What a drunkard. Young Master Su, please come in. Suddenly, the voice of the shop assistant at the door sounded. Young Master Su. Qin Feiyang and Madman were startled. They turned their heads and saw a young man in purple walking into the restaurant with his head lowered. However, he was completely different from the high-spirited young man they met at the Demon Tower. At this moment, his whole person seemed to be dispirited. Young Master Su raised his head and looked at the hall. His eyes fell on Qin Feiyang and Madman. When they saw young Master Su's face, Qin Feiyang and Madman were stunned. Young Master Su's whole face was bruised and swollen. What happened to you? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Young Master Su walked to Qin Feiyang and Madman's side, lowered his head and said, I'm sorry, I really can't find so many soul stones. Soul stones? Yun Xiang and the woman looked at the three of them suspiciously. It's okay. I didn't plan to ask you for it. Qin Feiyang waved his hand. I know. I just went to the Demon Tower. The Tower Master said that you just wanted to teach me a lesson. So I specially came to thank you. Young Master Su looked at the two of them and said, How did you know we were here? Madman was suspicious. Now the entire Wind City knows that you killed the people of the City Lord Mansion here. What's so strange about me knowing? Young Master Su said sullenly. The news spread really fast. Qin Feiyang shook his head and said with a smile. Since you're here, then sit down and talk. What the hell happened to you? It's all because of my father. It wasn't easy for me to muster up the courage to go back and ask him for the soul stones. In the end, he called me a wastrel and directly punched and kicked me. If I didn't beg for mercy, I would have been beaten to death by him. Yes, it's my fault. But I'm his flesh and blood after all. Is there a need to treat me like this? My big brother, who is the young master of our Su family, has caused no less trouble than me. But I've never seen my father punish him, not even scold him. I really wonder if I'm his biological son. Young Master Su was getting angrier and angrier. In the end, he almost jumped up. Calm down, calm down. The house leader has already told me about your situation. This kind of thing is very common in big families. What you need to do now is not to be discouraged, nor to complain, but to work hard to prove to them that you're not worse than your big brother. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. I know. That's why I'm working so hard to refine pills. That's why I want to enter the Demon Palace. But now, I don't know if I can enter the Demon Palace with my little ability. Young Master Su shook his head and sighed. Where there's a will, there's a way. Qin Feiyang smiled. Unfilial son, get out here. But at this moment, an angry roar sounded outside. It's over, why is he here? Young Master Su's face suddenly changed. Who is it? Qin Feiyang was puzzled. The woman said, the Su family's patriarch, his father. What is he doing here? Is he looking for trouble with us? Madman frowned. Obviously not. He should have known that young Master Su came to find you. He was afraid that this would anger the City Lord Mansion and the Su family. So he came to find young Master Su. The woman said. So timid, and the patriarch of the family, what a joke. Madman's eyes were full of contempt. The woman couldn't help but smile bitterly. Who in Tianfeng City wasn't afraid of the City Lord Mansion? Not to mention Tianfeng City, other cities were the same. In a city, excluding the people from the Demon Palace, the City Lord Mansion was the biggest. Get out here, didn't you hear? The Su family's patriarch's angry voice sounded outside again. Young Master Su's neck shrank. Looking at Qin Feiyang and Madman, he bowed and said, thank you again. After saying that, he turned around and ran out in a panic. On the street outside, because of the death of the old man in black, there were already many people around. Now because of the arrival of the Su family's patriarch, even more people ran over to watch. In front of the crowd, there was a middle-aged man wearing a black robe. His whole person was like a furious lion. Beside him, there were a few guards. That's right. The middle-aged man in black was the Su family's patriarch. Father. Young Master Su walked out of the restaurant, lowered his head, and walked in front of the Su family's patriarch with a face full of fear. Unfilial son. The middle-aged man in black raised his hand and slapped young Master Su's face. Slap. Young Master Su flew out on the spot and rolled on the ground in a sorry state. Do you know that they killed the City Lord Mansion's people and actually came to find them? Are you trying to kill our Su family? What an evil beast, see if I don't beat him to death. The middle-aged man in black was burning with anger, and he went forward to punch and kick him. Although the surrounding people showed sympathy, no one went forward to stop him, as if they were already used to it. Young Master Su roared. Father, I just came to thank them. Thank them? They tricked you, and you still come to thank them. I think you're not only a waste, but also a fool with no intelligence, idiot. The Su family's patriarch was even more annoyed. They're not like that, and they didn't ask me for more soul stones. Young Master Su roared hysterically. The Su family's patriarch was stunned, stopped the movement of his hand, and said in surprise, they didn't ask you for more soul stones? Yes. Young Master Su nodded. They don't even want soul stones. Are these too stupid? The Su family's patriarch glanced at the restaurant, thought for a while, and coldly snorted. Even so, you shouldn't have come to find them. Do you believe that I won't expel you from the Su family now? Young Master Su's eyes trembled. Even a vicious tiger won't eat its cubs. I've never seen a father who treats his own son like this. In my opinion, if he is really expelled from the Su family by you, it will be a good thing for him. At this moment, Qin Feiyang and Madman walked out, looked at the injured young Master Su, then looked at the Su family's patriarch and said lightly, originally, this was a family matter of the Su family. He didn't want to interfere, but this person was too much. Beating him in the street, he didn't give his son any face at all. In the future, how can young Master Su stay in Wen City? I'm afraid that when he sees people, he will have to lower his head in inferiority. The Su family's patriarch raised his head and looked at Qin Feiyang and Madman, his eyebrows slightly raised, and asked, you two are the two who tricked this unfilial son? Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. You guys really have guts. Although this unfilial son is a good-for-nothing, he is still a member of my Su family. You actually dared to scheme against him. A cold light flashed in the Su family's patriarch's eyes. You also know that he is a member of your Su family? You beat him in the street like this. Aren't you slapping your Su family's face with your own hands? Besides, he doesn't seem to have done much wrong. Qin Feiyang said lightly. The Su family's patriarch shouted. He was cheated of so many soul stones by you. And it's not a big mistake. But we didn't ask for it, did we? Qin Feiyang frowned. You have to dare to ask for it. The The Su family's patriarch sneered. And Qin Feiyang and Madman looked at each other. What does he mean? Does this person think that they don't want the soul stones because they are afraid of the Su family? Chapter 30:19. What's the big deal? It's all in the past. What's there to argue about? Let's all take a step back and stop pursuing this matter. Seeing that Qin Feiyang and Madman's expressions were getting gloomier and gloomier, Yun Xiang and the woman quickly came out to smooth things over. They even dared to kill people from the city lord's mansion, let alone a mere patriarch of the Su family. They were worried that Qin Feiyang and Madman would kill again. But the patriarch of the Su family didn't appreciate it. Not only did he not appreciate it, but he also looked at the two contemptuously and said, "Are you qualified to speak? It's really a filthy place. There are all kinds of monsters here." The woman immediately raised her eyebrows and looked at the patriarch of the Su family. "Patriarch of the Su family, you have to make it clear. My Tianyue building doesn't rob or steal. We do business seriously. How is it a filthy place? Doing business in a proper way. If you're serious, why do you wear a veil all day? Do you think everyone doesn't know that you're doing this just to pretend to be mysterious and attract the attention of men? This way, more people will come to your Tianyue building. May I ask, a woman like you, saying that you're serious, don't you think it's ridiculous?" The patriarch of the Su family had a look of ridicule. The woman's gaze immediately darkened. Tianyue restaurant had always been doing business in a serious manner. They had never done anything immoral or immoral. At this moment he actually said this to her. This was an insult to her personality. "Interesting." Madman suddenly grinned. Yin Xiang and the woman looked at each other and fell silent. They didn't want to persuade him anymore, because people like the patriarch of the Su family weren't worth their saliva. Madman looked at the patriarch of the Su family and laughed. "We don't dare to take your Su family's soul stone. I'm too lazy to talk nonsense with trash like you." The patriarch of the Su family snorted and looked at young Master Su. "Get out of here right now." Young Master Su's eyes trembled. He quickly got up and turned to leave. Qin Feiyang and Madman ignored young Master Su and kept their eyes on the patriarch of the Su family. The patriarch of the Su family glanced at the two disdainfully and was about to leave. But at this moment, "Don't rush. I haven't said anything yet." The madman spoke, his eyes filled with mockery. The Su family's patriarch's gaze turned cold. He turned to look at Madman and said, "Brat, don't act recklessly." As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. His disdainful attitude was as if he was looking at an ant. "You're courting death. All right. Let's see how your Su family will kill me today. I'm telling you, give me 100 billion soul stones in 1 hour. Otherwise I'll flatten your Su family." The madman's eyes flashed with killing intent. "What? 100 billion soul stones?" A commotion broke out among the crowd. Even if the Su family was a big family in Tianfeng City, it was impossible for them to take out so many spirit stones at once. 100 billion. This was simply the rhythm of destroying the Su family. The Su family's patriarch suddenly froze and stopped in his tracks. His face suddenly turned gloomy to the extreme. Young Master Su also turned to look at Madman in shock. Madman glanced at young Master Su and said, "This has nothing to do with you." Young Master Su smiled bitterly. That was right. Indeed, it had nothing to do with him now. But his father wouldn't think this way. The Su family's clansmen wouldn't think this way either. They would only think that this was the trouble he brought to the Su family. Remember, 100 billion, not a single one less. Madman looked at the Su family's patriarch and laughed. Swish! The Su family's patriarch suddenly turned around and stared at Madman. "Do you know the strength of my Su family? Do you know that I have a child in the demon palace? So what?" Madman chuckled. "You're courting death." The Su family's patriarch laughed sinisterly. "Is that so? Then I'm looking forward to how you'll die." Madman smiled. Good, good, good. You're arrogant. Let's see how long you can be arrogant for. Soul stones. You bastards, don't even think about it. If you have the guts, come to the Su family and see if you can raise my Su family to the ground. The Su family's patriarch sneered and walked to young Master Su without looking back. He directly kicked him. Bastard, why aren't you leaving? He was completely using young Master Su as a punching bag. Swish. It was also at this moment. A figure suddenly descended from the sky. It was a middle-aged man in black armor. He was serious and dignified. It's the commander of the City Lord Mansion. I heard that his strength is the strongest in the entire City Lord Mansion, except for the City Lord. Everyone's pupils shrank as they whispered. When the Su family's patriarch saw the appearance of the middle-aged man in black armor, a trace of gloating appeared in his eyes. Qin Feiyang and Madman also looked up, but there was a trace of disdain in their eyes. The strongest existence? But he was only at the great perfection undead stage. I thought that the City Lord would come personally, but I didn't expect that he would only send a small character like you. What? Is he looking down on me and not even interested in making a move? Madman snickered. The middle-aged man in black armor's eyes suddenly turned cold. When the surrounding people heard this, they all looked at Madman in disbelief. They never thought that this person would dare to be so arrogant in front of the City Lord Mansion's commander. He didn't put the City Lord Mansion in his eyes at all. If you want to apologize, then let your City Lord come personally. You can't replace him. Madman shook his head, then turned to look at Qin Feiyang and said with a smile, "Why don't we continue drinking?" Qin Feiyang nodded and smiled. The two immediately turned around and walked towards the entrance of Tianyue restaurant. Apologize? Everyone was stunned. What did he mean by that? Did he think that the City Lord Mansion's commander was here to apologize to them? Was there something wrong with his brain? They killed someone from the City Lord Mansion and asked the City Lord to personally apologize to them? They were convinced, they were really convinced. What kind of people were they? Shouldn't there be a limit to their arrogance? By the way, Madman suddenly turned to look at the Su family's patriarch and grinned. Don't take my words as a joke. After saying that, he laughed and turned to enter Tianyue restaurant without looking back. The Su family's patriarch clenched his hands and rushed to the middle-aged man in black armor. He said angrily, "Commander, look, is there any law?" The middle-aged man in black armor's face was extremely gloomy. First time. This was really the first time that someone dared to look down on the City Lord Mansion like this. Boom. A monstrous aura suddenly erupted. When the Su family's patriarch saw this, he silently retreated to the side with a sneer in his eyes. Follow me to the City Lord Mansion immediately. The middle-aged man in black armor stared at Tianyue restaurant and shouted coldly. However, there was no response. You're courting death. The middle-aged man in black armor roared, and a wisp of divine power emerged and blasted towards Tianyue restaurant below like lightning. Boom! With a loud bang, Tianyue restaurant suddenly collapsed. Qin Feiyang and the others, as well as a group of people, ran out with their faces covered in dirt. Commander, why are you doing this? The woman glared at the middle-aged man in black armor. All of this happened because of you, so you can't escape the blame. Follow me to the City Lord Mansion. The middle-aged man in black armor looked at the woman and said gloomily, "Who do you think you are? How dare you act like a tyrant in front of me?" Madman stepped into the sky and exuded a monstrous aura, like a demon god descending to the world. The middle-aged man in black armor also surged with killing intent and shouted, "City Lord, please take action and kill these arrogant people." What? The City Lord is also here. Where is he? Everyone looked at the sky in surprise. However, Madman turned a deaf ear and slapped at the middle-aged man in black armor. The middle-aged man in black armor smiled disdainfully and used an auxiliary divine art to retreat like lightning. Boom! At the same time, a terrifying divine might appeared and surged towards Madman from all directions. Following closely, a middle-aged man appeared out of thin air in the sky. He was about 1.8 meters tall and had a thin body. His cold face was filled with an intimidating majesty. His aura was like the ocean and unfathomable. It's the City Lord. Greetings, City Lord. Everyone present bowed and saluted. City Lord? Qin Feiyang and Madman sized up the middle-aged man. This was the City Lord of Tianfeng City? Half-step sovereign realm? The middle-aged man stood in the sky like a god, and the world trembled. Divine power enveloped Madman. Madman was immediately imprisoned in the void and couldn't move. I thought it was some important figure who dared to act recklessly in my Tianfeng city. So it's just a few unknown clowns. The middle-aged man said coldly and pointed at Madman. A wisp of divine power appeared and shot towards Madman's forehead with an apocalyptic aura. You're a half-step sovereign? Madman immediately turned pale with fright. That's right. The middle-aged man nodded. Half-step sovereign. Qin Feiyang glanced at Yun Xiang with a trace of fear on his face. Brother Yun, I didn't expect the city lord of Tianfeng City to be so strong. Yeah. Yun Xiang nodded. Madman roared anxiously. What are you thinking? Come and save me. Yun Xiang looked at Qin Feiyang and said, Brother Qin, go and help. The other party is a half-step sovereign. How can I help? Qin Feiyang roared. Yun Xiang was stunned and said, I don't believe that you only have this little ability. What a joke. The other party is a half-step sovereign, but I can't abandon my brother. Qin Feiyang's face was filled with fear as he charged forward. However, when he arrived in front of Madman, he was also restrained by the city lord's aura. Seeing this, the woman hurriedly said, Young Master Yun, think of something, or they will definitely die. Yun Xiang couldn't help but frown. These two really only have this little ability? In the blink of an eye, the city lord's divine power had already arrived, and a fatal danger enveloped Qin Feiyang and Madman. Not far away, the Su family patriarch sneered. With this little ability, they dared to act presumptuously in Tianfeng City? They really overestimated themselves. Seeing the divine power crazily charging over, Madman said angrily, This Yun Xiang can really keep his composure. Maybe we're thinking too much. He doesn't have the ability to fight against a half-step sovereign. Qin Feiyang transmitted. That's right. They were actually using this opportunity to probe Yun Xiang's strength. As for the city lord, this half-step sovereign, they really didn't put him in their eyes. However, Yun Xiang didn't seem to have any intention of making a move. Chapter 30:20. Then let's fight back. The madman's eyes flashed with killing intent. Qin Feiyang responded, and was about to summon the Sunset Divine Bow and other heaven-defying divine artifacts. Boom! But at this moment, a terrifying aura suddenly erupted from below. Following closely, a figure appeared in front of Qin Feiyang and the madman. Who else could it be but Yun Xiang? Qin Feiyang and the madman looked at Yun Xiang's back in surprise. Since we are friends, I naturally can't leave you in the lurch. Yun Xiang smiled without turning his head. Accompanied by a loud clang, a black dagger suddenly appeared in front of Yun Xiang. Immediately, a monstrous sharp aura swept out in all directions, directly shattering the pressure that shrouded this space. Qin Feiyang and the madman felt their bodies lighten as they looked at the black dagger in surprise. The dagger was only about a foot long and was completely black, flickering with a dazzling divine light. This is a heaven-defying divine artifact. Qin Feiyang and the madman looked at each other. There was also a trace of surprise in the city lord's eyes, but then it was filled with disdain. But at the same time, Yun Xiang grabbed Qin Feiyang and the madman and rushed to the woman's side like lightning. Then he wrapped the woman up and opened a space-time crack, disappearing without a trace. What? Space-time law? The city lord looked at the space-time crack in shock. He never thought that there would be someone among these people who had comprehended the space-time law. Not to mention the city lord. Even Qin Feiyang and the madman were shocked. Forget about the heaven-defying divine artifact. He actually grasped such a terrifying power of law. This Yun Xiang was really unfathomable. The middle-aged man in black armor flew to the city lord's side and frowned. Sir, are we just going to let them run away like this? He grasped the space-time law. What can I do? The city lord glared at him angrily. The middle-aged man's pupils shrank. However, because it was too sudden this time, I didn't know that he had grasped the laws of space-time. The next time we meet them, we'll be prepared, and they won't have this chance. The city lord sneered and turned to leave. Outside the city, somewhere in the mountains, a space crack appeared, and 4 figures walked out one after another. It was Qin Feiyang and the other 3. Where is this? Qin Feiyang and madman looked down suspiciously. Outside the city, Yin Xiang smiled. Hearing this, Qin Feiyang and Li Wuyo breathed a sigh of relief. Then they turned to look at the space crack that was healing. There was also a hint of surprise in the woman's eyes. What's wrong with you guys? Yin Xiang looked at the three of them suspiciously. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly and said, Brother Yin, you really hid deeply. Hiding his strength? Yin Xiang shook his head with a smile and said, Isn't it just the laws of space-time? It's no big deal. Qin Feiyang was stunned and said speechlessly, As far as I know, in the entire Sky Cloud realm, there aren't many who have comprehended the laws of space-time. Is that so? Yin Xiang was taken aback and said with a smile, I haven't learned about this, but I've only comprehended the first profound ability of the laws of space-time. That's also very powerful. Qin Feiyang said. The first profound ability of the laws of space-time was space-time teleportation. Old Qin, there's a problem that I don't understand. Madman suddenly said. What problem? Qin Feiyang looked at him suspiciously. Isn't it said that as long as someone completely comprehended a law and stepped into the half-step ruler realm, they would be able to bestow a divine artifact with the power of space-time? And a divine artifact bestowed with the power of space-time is a heaven-defying divine artifact. Logically speaking, this city lord is a half-step ruler, so he should have as many heaven-defying divine artifacts as there are hairs on an ox. But why didn't that commander or that black-clothed old man I killed have a heaven-defying divine artifact? Madman frowned. This problem? Qin Feiyang looked at Yin Xiang. Although there was some relevant information in Luo Tianshan's memories, Luo Tianshan was just a small figure after all. What he knew was only hearsay, so he couldn't take it too seriously. Moreover, he didn't read Luo Tianshan's complete memories at that time, so he only had a rough understanding of the basic situation of the Sky Cloud realm. Why are you looking at me? Yin Xiang put away the black dagger and said suspiciously. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. We're waiting for you to explain it to us. Many people know about this, but you don't. I'm curious. Are you people of the Sky Cloud realm? Yin Xiang was suspicious. Qin Feiyang and Madman's hearts trembled. Qin Feiyang said with a half-joking smile. Then Brother Yin, just treat us as if we're not from the Sky Cloud realm. Yin Xiang was stunned and asked curiously. Then where are you from? Did you jump out of a stone? You're the one who jumped out of a stone. Madman rolled his eyes. Haha. Yin Xiang laughed and said. It's not that simple to bestow divine artifact with the power of law. What do you mean? Madman was curious. Yin Xiang said. It's not enough to just comprehend one type of law. It also requires a very strong cultivation. How strong? Madman was suspicious. Yin Xiang said. Great perfection sovereign realm. What? Madman was shocked. If comprehending one type of law can bestow divine artifact with the power of law, then wouldn't the heaven-defying divine artifact be worthless? So it's not that simple. The power of law and the cultivation of great perfection sovereign realm. These two conditions are indispensable. Yin Xiang smiled. I see. Madman muttered and turned to Qin Feiyang and smiled bitterly. It seems that we were just guessing before. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. Luo Tianshan's memories also said so. Indeed, in the past, there wasn't even a half-step sovereign in the ancient realm. For example, divine artifacts like the Sunset Divine Bao were only heaven-defying divine artifacts. They probably didn't know much about sovereign realm experts. Therefore, they could only imagine everything that had happened. They thought that after comprehending one type of law, they could bestow the power of law to a divine artifact and let it evolve into a heaven-defying divine artifact. But in reality, this wasn't the case. Even revered dragon probably didn't know about this. Even if she knew about it from Ice Dragon, she wouldn't tell others the truth. After all, in the ancient realm, sovereign realm existences were legends. Indeed, it was true to the old saying, only when you truly came into contact with it would you know the hidden truth. However, although half-step sovereigns can't bestow the power of law, their strength is comparable to ordinary heaven-defying divine artifacts. Even some heaven-defying divine artifacts might not be a match for them. That's why I took you and fled. Firstly, I wasn't confident. Secondly, I didn't want to bring disaster to Wind City and those innocent people. Yin Ziang smiled. Qin Feiyang and Madman nodded. This was the truth. If they really fought in Wind City, the entire city would probably be affected. Then the Demon Palace, Blood Palace, Sky Palace, and Divine Palace should have peak sovereign realm experts, right? Then the 4 superpowers should have an uncountable number of heaven-defying divine artifacts, right? Madman asked suspiciously. Yun Ziang nodded and smiled. Of course the 4 superpowers have a lot of heaven-defying divine artifacts, but you'll have to ask them to know how many they have. Madman asked suspiciously. Then tell me, how can a heaven-defying divine artifact evolve into a sovereign weapon? Qin Feiyang was also stunned. This wasn't in Luo Tianshan's memories at all, because he wasn't qualified to come into contact with these things. Evolve into a sovereign weapon? Yun Ziang was slightly taken aback and shook his head. How would I know about this? But I've heard some rumors. It's fine, tell me. Madman said. In his and Qin Feiyang's understanding, only after fusing with the world could a sovereign weapon evolve into a sovereign weapon. Just like the ancient castle fusing with the Black Tortoise world. After the ancient castle fused with the Black Tortoise world, it quickly evolved into a sovereign weapon. This was something that could be confirmed, because they saw it with their own eyes. But they didn't know if there was any other way to evolve a divine artifact into a sovereign weapon other than fusing with the world. Yun Ziang pondered for a while and smiled. There are rumors that a divine artifact can quickly evolve into a sovereign weapon after fusing with the world, but this is almost impossible. Why? Madman was stunned. Why else? Think about it, other than the creator of this world, who else can own a world? Yin Ziang said. That's not necessarily true. The madman smiled meaningfully. The person standing next to him had an independent world. Hearing this, Yun Ziang looked at Madman in surprise. What I want to say is that there are too many unbelievable things in this world. Nothing can be absolute. Maybe someone will be lucky enough to obtain a world. Madman smiled. Then this luck is heaven-defying. Yun Ziang smiled. Madman asked, then, other than fusing with the world, is there any other way? I heard there is. Yun Ziang nodded. What way? Qin Feiyang and Madman looked at each other, and looked at Yun Ziang expectantly. Yun Ziang said, seize the fortune of heaven and earth and absorb the world's origin energy. Qin Feiyang and Madman were stunned. That was possible, but why did Little Naughty and the Sunset Divine Bao say that absorbing origin energy can only make the heaven-defying divine weapon a little stronger, and can't evolve into a dominator divine weapon? Could it be that they didn't tell the truth? Or even they didn't know and just guessed it out of thin air? It is said that this origin energy is everywhere. For example, the essence energy of heaven and earth, battle chi, law force, and divine force are all formed from the origin energy. The origin energy is also the strongest energy in the world. The law force is very strong, but the origin energy is many times more terrifying than the law force. So, it is said that as long as a heaven-defying divine weapon is endowed with the law force, it can evolve into a dominator divine weapon. Remember, it's possible, not absolute. And the evolution process is also very slow. Tens of billions of years, or even hundreds of billions of years, it might not succeed. Of course, if you can directly absorb the origin energy, the evolution speed will be much faster, and the success rate will be higher. Yin Ziang said. Madman nodded in realization and said, just now, I heard you say ordinary, heaven-defying divine weapons. Could it be that these heaven-defying divine weapons also have grades? Yin Ziang was stunned. You don't even know this? Can't this old man come from the countryside? Madman joked. Okay. Yin Ziang nodded helplessly. Shouldn't he have the attitude of asking for advice? His tone sounded as if he owed him something. Chapter 30-21. Don't mind him. This senior brother of mine is like that. If he's polite to you, he won't treat you as a friend. Qin Feiyang smiled. Yin Ziang shook his head and smiled. There are indeed grades for heaven-defying divine artifacts. They are elementary, intermediate, advanced, pinnacle, legendary, and supreme. There are 6 more grades. Madman was surprised. The difference is the cultivation level. Elementary heaven-defying divine artifacts correspond to half-step dominators. Intermediate heaven-defying divine artifacts correspond to beginner dominators. Advanced heaven-defying divine artifacts correspond to beginner dominators. Pinnacle heaven-defying divine artifacts correspond to great mastery dominators. The legendary and paragon rank heaven-defying divine artifacts correspond to the paragon and paragon sovereign realm. As for dominator divine artifacts, although they have the word dominators, they have already surpassed dominators. In the entire sky cloud realm, they can be counted on one hand. Each of them has the ability to destroy heaven and earth. Yin Xiang smiled. Madman heard this and transmitted his voice to Qin Feiyang. Then wouldn't the sunset divine bow and other heaven-defying divine artifacts have already evolved into advanced heaven-defying divine artifacts? Qin Feiyang nodded and glanced at Yin Xiang from the corner of his eyes. He sent a voice transmission to Madman. Do you think this person said these things based on hearsay, or is it true? What do you mean? Madman was suspicious. If it's hearsay, then it's nothing. But if what he said is true, then his identity isn't simple. After all, this information is basically secret. Without a certain identity and status, it's impossible to come in contact with it. Qin Feiyang secretly said. Makes sense. Madman secretly responded and then said. But looking at his appearance, it doesn't seem like he's deliberately approaching us. That's why I can't see through him. Just in case, it's better to take precautions in the future. Qin Feiyang warned. We'll part ways with them later. What's there to be afraid of? Madman had a completely indifferent attitude. However, this was indeed the case. As long as they went their separate ways, Yin Xiang would not have a chance even if he had a purpose. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed as he looked at Yin Xiang and said, Brother Yin, I have another question that I would like to consult you about. Yin Xiang pointed at Qin Feiyang and looked at Madman. Brother Madman, do you see that? This is the attitude of asking for advice. Madman ignored him. Yin Xiang shook his head and smiled bitterly. He looked at Qin Feiyang and said, Tell me. Qin Feiyang asked. If the heaven-defying divine artifact needs to be imbued with the power of law, then what about the heaven-defying divine art? Oh, this. Yin Xiang pondered for a moment and said, I've heard of it before. It seems to be the fusion of the power of laws. Fusion? Qin Feiyang was taken aback. Yes, divine weapons are bestowed, while divine arts are fused. There is a qualitative difference between these two. In other words, the heaven-defying divine art is to fuse the power of law into the moves of the divine art. In this regard, there is no cultivation limit. As long as you completely comprehend a kind of power of law, it will be fine. But it's not that simple. This requires an astonishing comprehension ability, and of course, it will also take a long time. But there is another possibility. If you are lucky and accidentally enter a state of epiphany, then you will immediately be able to master it. Moreover, the heaven-defying divine art is also divided into ranks, just like the heaven-defying divine artifact. Yin Xiang said. Is that so? Qin Feiyang suddenly understood, and an imperceptible crystal light flashed in his eyes. Although Yin Xiang repeatedly mentioned that it was only hearsay, when he said it, his tone was very confident. This meant that most of what Yin Xiang said was true. In this way, Yin Xiang's identity was naturally not simple. All right then, let's part here. The madman looked at Yin Xiang and the woman and said, Yin Xiang and the woman were stunned. Why are you looking at me like that? The madman looked at the two in confusion. Brother Madman, we have gone through thick and thin together. Are you going to abandon us just like that? Yin Xiang looked at the madman with a bitter expression. The madman's mouth twitched, and he asked, Then what do you mean by this? Let's not talk about anything else. But at least we have to help this lady solve her problem. Yin Xiang pointed at the woman beside him. I'm fine. I've already caused you a lot of trouble, and I'm sorry to trouble you again. At most, I'll leave Tianfeng City and go to another city to make a living. The woman quickly waved her hand and smiled. Although the Tianfeng City Lord lives in a remote corner, As a half-step sovereign realm expert, he definitely has friends in other cities. If he finds out, will he let you go? Yun Ziang said. This. The woman hesitated. Yun Ziang smiled. So this matter has to be solved from the root. The madman said. Then we can only kill the Tianfeng city lord. That's right. Yun Ziang nodded. We can't do that. The madman hurriedly shook his head. You haven't even tried. How do you know you can't do it? Yun Ziang was speechless. Is there a need to try? The Tianfeng city lord is a half-step sovereign. Even someone like you who has a heaven-defying divine artifact doesn't have the confidence to kill him, let alone us. The madman curled his lips and suddenly asked, What grade is your heaven-defying divine artifact? Low grade, the most ordinary grade. Yun Ziang said. Then there's the problem. If you're mid-grade or high-grade, we can try. The madman said. But Yun Ziang frowned. Stop. The madman raised his hand to stop her. Fate ends here, we'll meet again. Then, she pulled Qin Feiyang and left like a bolt of lightning. This? Yun Ziang was stunned and couldn't come back to his senses for a long time. The woman smiled. Big brother Yun, it's fine. I'm alone, I can go anywhere. There's no need to risk your life for me. How can I do that? I'm a man, how can I leave a woman like you? Yun Ziang shook his head. This? The woman hesitated and bowed. Then I'll thank Big Brother Yin. No need to be so polite. Since we've met, it means we're fated. It's not about helping each other. It's about taking care of each other. Yun Ziang smiled faintly. He then looked in the direction Qin Feiyang, and the other man had disappeared. He shook his head and said, I really misjudged them this time. I originally thought that they were two decent people, but I didn't expect. They weren't wrong. After all, they had to face the city governor of Skywind City, so it's understandable. Not to mention that we've only met by chance, and there's no relationship between us. It's already very generous of them to help me once in Heavenly Joy Pavilion. The woman smiled. Yun Ziang shook his head and said, Now that you've said that, it makes me seem narrow-minded. I didn't mean that. Big brother Yin, please don't misunderstand. The woman hurriedly waved her hand. I'm just joking. Yun Ziang grinned and pondered deeply for a moment before he said, I'm quite familiar with Ocean of Cloud City. Why don't I take you there? Ocean of Cloud City? The woman was instantly shocked. That's one of the largest cities in the Eastern continent. I heard that the city governor of Ocean of Cloud City is even a terrifying existence at the perfect sovereign realm. No matter how strong the city governor is, it has nothing to do with us. We're there to make a living. Yun Ziang smiled. That makes sense. The woman nodded and pondered deeply for a moment before she said, Then all right. I'll be troubling Big Brother Yin in the future. It's fine. Yun Ziang waved his hand and activated a teleportation altar to leave. At the same time, on the other side, Madman and Qin Feiyang stood at the peak of a mountain and gazed towards Skywind City. Qin Feiyang frowned. Senior brother Madman, isn't it a little inappropriate for us to do this? What's inappropriate? We're not familiar with them. Besides that, Yun Ziang really makes me feel uncomfortable. It feels like I'm being targeted by a venomous snake when I stand by his side. Madman shook his head. You feel the same way as well. Qin Feiyang was surprised. Do you feel the same way? Madman was stunned. Yes. I sensed a dangerous aura from him when we were at Heavenly Delight Pavilion. Qin Feiyang nodded. Madman said, Then it's definitely true. We have to stay away from him. What's next? Qin Feiyang asked. Next? Madman laughed and said, Who are we? Those two are madmen. If they say it, they must do it. No, I'm not a madman. Qin Feiyang quickly waved his hand. What's the difference between you and a madman like me? Madman rolled his eyes. Qin Feiyang smiled. Let's go kill our way to the Su family and rob their treasury. Madman waved his hand and roared in high spirits. Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. It seemed that the fate of the Su family was destined. By the way, do you know where the Su family is? Madman asked. I know, it's in Luo Tianshan's memory. Qin Feiyang nodded. Then let's kill our way there. Madman chuckled. The Su family. This luxurious mansion was located in the center of the eastern part of Skywind City. Inside the mansion, the palace was majestic and grand. It could be said that, whether it was the scale or luxury of the Su family, it was not inferior to the imperial palace. In a certain hall, Bastard. I really regret giving birth to you. If I knew you were so useless, I would have strangled you to death. The Su family's patriarch sat on the throne above and roared angrily. Below, young Master Su knelt on the ground, trembling. There were many maids and guards outside the door. Looking at the embarrassed young Master Su, not only did they not have the slightest sympathy, but they all had a face of ridicule. Even the servants had such an attitude. It could be seen that this young Master Su was not welcomed in the Su family. The Su family's patriarch said gloomily, "Tell me the truth, did you really just go to thank them?" "Yes." Young Master Su nodded. "Even if it's to thank them, it's absolutely not allowed." At this time, a graceful and luxurious woman walked in and looked at young Master Su with eyes full of coldness. "Madam, why are you here?" The Su family's patriarch greeted her. "Greetings, Auntie." Young Master Su respectfully bowed. "Don't call me Auntie, look at yourself, are you worthy of being my son?" The woman's face was full of contempt. Hearing such sarcastic and insulting words, young Master Su's hands could not help but retract into his sleeves and tightly clenched together. Chapter 30:22. What's wrong? Looking at you, you seem to be very dissatisfied with me? The woman looked at young Master Su coldly. "I don't dare." Young Master Su quickly lowered his head. "Useless thing." The woman snorted coldly and looked at the Su family head. "Husband, although the other party didn't come to us for the soul stone this time, of course, they didn't dare to come to us for it. But this matter has seriously affected our Su family's reputation." Hearing this, young Master Su's eyes immediately sank. Based on his understanding of this woman, she would definitely take the opportunity to make things difficult for him. And this time, she might even kill him. "Madam, what do you mean?" The Su family had looked at the woman suspiciously. "Expel him from the Su family. Only by severing ties with him, the City Lord Mansion won't make things difficult for us in the future." The woman said. "What?" Young Master Su's eyes trembled. "This woman is too vicious." He quickly looked at the Su family head. Hearing this, the Su family head also looked at young Master Su with a trace of hesitation in his eyes. Young Master Su shouted, "Father, I'm not adopted, I'm your biological son." "Shut up," the woman suddenly shouted coldly. "If you're really a member of our Su family, you won't cause us so much trouble, and I'm even thinking." Speaking of this, the woman's eyes were filled with coldness. "What are you thinking?" the Su family head asked. "Husband, I think he might have deliberately gone to Tianyua building to look for those two people." The woman said. "Deliberately?" The Su family head was taken aback. "Yes, he deliberately went to look for those two people to make everyone think that our Su family is related to them. In this way, our Su family will bear the crime of being an accomplice, and the City Lord Mansion will naturally not let us go." The woman said, "No, I really didn't. I just went to thank them. Father, if I have half a lie, may the heavens strike me 5 times and I'll die a horrible death." Young Master Su hurriedly looked at the Su family head and shouted. He didn't think of this at all. He went to Tianyua building to look for Qin Feiyang and Madman purely out of gratitude. Although his talent wasn't good, and he was a waste in the eyes of others, he still knew how to repay kindness. If you don't even know the basic concept of gratitude, then do you still deserve to be a human? However, the Su family did not listen to his explanation at all. Their eyes were gloomy to the extreme. "He's already so scheming at such a young age. What will happen when he grows up? Husband, we can't let him off so easily this time. We must chase him out of the Su family. After all, you know the City Lord's personality. He is suspicious and vicious. Although you were there at the time and made your stand clear, he might not believe you. Even if he believes it, in his heart, he will definitely be estranged from the Su family. This is very disadvantageous to the future development of our Su family." The woman said worriedly. The Su family's patriarch's face sank slightly. He nodded and said, "Madam's words make sense." "Father." Young Master Su looked at his father in disbelief. Although the Su family's patriarch usually beat, scolded, and humiliated him, in his heart, there was still no hatred, because this person was his father. He had always believed that his father had beaten and scolded him, because he expected better from him. But he never thought that his father would actually abandon him this time. "Shut up." The Su family's patriarch shouted angrily. "I didn't do anything." Why? Young Master Su roared. At this moment he exploded. The humiliation and anger that had accumulated for countless years could no longer be held back. This was also the first time in his life that he yelled at the Su family's patriarch. He didn't want to be silent anymore. He had been silent for too long. He had almost forgotten that in fact he also had dignity. However, his first attempt to argue for what was right was met with a merciless beating in return. The Su family's patriarch immediately slapped him hard in the face. His whole body flew out directly. His face instantly swelled up and blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. "You actually dare to yell at me? I think you're a natural rebel. See if I don't beat you to death, you evil beast." The Su family's patriarch stepped forward and punched and kicked without mercy. Young Master Su curled up on the ground, holding his head. While wailing he shouted, "Kill me, kill me. Anyway, since my mother passed away, I don't want to live anymore. Let me reunite with my mother." "Okay, I'll fulfill your wish." The Su family's patriarch was furious, and his attacks became heavier and heavier. Crack! The bones in young Master Su's body began to break. His whole body was dripping with blood. The woman watched from the side gloatingly. After a while, she stepped forward and pulled the Su family's patriarch, saying, "Husband, don't beat him. If you really beat him to death, you will bear the reputation of being a murderer." The Su family's patriarch said angrily, "It's natural for a father to beat his son. Who has the qualifications to talk about it?" Yes. But we can't shut other people's mouths, right? How about this? You give the order to expel him from the Su family, then cripple his cultivation, tie him up, and personally send him to the city lord's mansion. This way, the city lord will be able to see the sincerity of our Su family. At that time, maybe not only will he not pursue the matter, but he will be even friendlier to our Su family than before. The woman laughed. Cripple his cultivation, and send him to the city lord's mansion. Young Master Su's eyes trembled. Was there still a way out? It was obvious that he wanted to kill him. "You're so vicious." He struggled to get up. Like an angry beast, he stared at the woman and roared, "How dare you scold me?" The woman's face suddenly turned cold, and she kicked young Master Su's lower abdomen. Young Master Su immediately flew out of the hall like a meteorite and smashed into the garden in front of the hall. None of the maids and guards outside came forward to help him. He lay in the pit, his body bloody and his whole person incomparably miserable. Why? Why did you do this to me? What did I do wrong? Since you hate me so much, why did you give birth to me in the first place? He stared blankly at the sky, his eyes full of despair and anger. Suddenly, under his almost blurred vision, he saw that two people seemed to have silently appeared in the sky. "Who is it? Can you help me?" He was already powerless to shout, and could only silently say it in his heart. At this time, the Su family's patriarch and the woman also walked out. Looking at young Master Su at this moment, the woman's eyes were full of sneers. Although young Master Su was not liked, he was still a descendant of the Su family, and had the Su family's bloodline power. In the future, whether it was the Su family's property or other things, he would more or less have a share. Therefore, she had long wanted to get rid of young Master Su, but she had never found the right opportunity. Of course, the biggest reason was young Master Su's mother. Once, after the Su family's patriarch married young Master Su's mother, she suffered a lot of grievances, so she bore a grudge. Although she was now dead in her eyes, young Master Su was still a threat. This time, she finally found an opportunity, so she naturally would not be merciful. The woman said, "Husband, it's best to send him to the city lord's mansion now." "Okay, The Su family's patriarch nodded and shattered young Master Su's sea of qi with one palm. He shouted, "Pass down my order. From today onwards, Su Yang is no longer a member of the Su family." "Yes," a guard next to him respectfully replied. "What's going on?" In the sky, indeed, two people appeared. And these two people were Qin Feiyang and Madman. When they saw the scene below, both of them were a little stunned. Isn't that the Su family's patriarch and young Master Su? Wait, isn't this matter already over? Why did you expel young Master Su from the Su family? Also, I heard the two of them say that they wanted to send young Master Su to the city lord's mansion? What does that mean? Below, the Su family's patriarch grabbed young Master Su and opened a teleportation altar. "Husband, you must be polite. Although Feng is a disciple of the Demon Palace, our Su family is still in Tianfeng City." The woman reminded. "Don't worry, I still know this." The Su family's patriarch nodded. "Then go quickly and come back quickly." The woman smiled slightly. The Su family's patriarch nodded and stepped onto the altar. How lively! But at this moment, a faint laugh rang out. Qin Feiyang and Madman slowly descended, and the Su family's patriarch raised his head and was shocked. He quickly jumped down from the teleportation altar and shouted, "When did you guys come?" "Not long ago. But you guys seemed to be too busy and didn't notice us." Madman smiled mockingly. The surrounding guards also immediately stepped forward and surrounded the two of them. Their eyes flashed coldly. The woman glanced at Qin Feiyang and Madman, then looked at the Su family's patriarch and asked, "Is it them?" The Su family's patriarch nodded. "You guys have guts. How dare you barge into our Su family so brazenly? Don't you know that the city lord's mansion is looking for you?" The woman shouted with a stern expression. "So what?" Madman chuckled. The Su family's patriarch said in a deep voice, "What are you doing here?" "Nonsense. Of course we're here to collect the debt. Have you prepared the 100 billion soul stones?" Madman said. Courting death. The Su family's patriarch's eyes were filled with killing intent. They actually came to the Su family to ask for the 100 billion soul stones. "Two brothers. Save me, I don't want to die, please." At this moment, a weak voice sounded. It was young Master Su. He heard Madman's voice clearly. As if grabbing onto a life-saving straw, he used his last bit of strength to ask Qin Feiyang and Madman for help. Madman looked at young Master Su and shook his head. TSK, how pitiful. "Save me." Young Master Su kept muttering, but his voice could no longer be heard. He really had no strength left and was extremely weak. Qin Feiyang frowned and looked at the Su family's patriarch. "He is your son after all. Is it appropriate for you to treat him like this?" "This is my family's matter. You don't need to worry about it. Get lost immediately." The Su family's patriarch shouted angrily. "Sure. Give us the soul stones, and we will leave immediately. We won't hinder you from pleasing the city lord." Madman bared his teeth. Good, you guys have guts." The Su family's patriarch was so angry that he laughed and shouted, "Cripple them and bring them to the city lord's mansion." Chapter 30-23. As soon as the Su family's patriarch finished speaking, a group of guards immediately rushed towards Qin Feiyang and the madman. What a bunch of reckless things! Madman's eyes flashed fiercely, and the blood demon domain instantly opened, enveloping the entire place. Immediately, everyone's cultivation began to plummet. The strength of these guards was not strong to begin with, and each of them was only at the peak 9th heaven realm. The Su family's patriarch's strength was quite strong, at the minor undead realm. But, under the blood demon domain, his cultivation directly plummeted to the 9th heaven realm. Everyone's expression suddenly changed. The woman screamed, "Go and inform the people of the city lord mansion." Noisy. Madman stepped forward and directly kicked the woman's lower abdomen. "Ah!" The woman immediately screamed and flew out. Her chi shattered on the spot. "Madam!" The Su family's patriarch hurriedly left the dying young Master Su and ran over. "You still have the mood to care about her?" Madman laughed and landed in front of the Su family's patriarch and kicked. Ouch! The Su family's patriarch also screamed and flew out, his chi also destroyed on the spot. Seeing this scene, the guards and maids all turned ghastly pale. Too strong. Could it be that he dared to kill the people of the City Lord Mansion? At the same time, Qin Feiyang walked in front of young Master Su and looked at the injuries on his body. He couldn't help but frown, then took out a divine life pill and threw it into young Master Su's mouth. The majestic life energy immediately exploded in young Master Su's body, healing his injuries. After all, this was a divine life pill with 4 dragon-shaped pill chi. After a while he recovered. Qin Feiyang was puzzled. What's going on? Just because I went to the Tianyue building to look for you, they wanted to kill me, young Master Su said weakly, his face full of resentment. At that time, your father was outside the Tianyue building. Didn't he already state his position in front of everyone? Qin Feiyang frowned. Yes, but this woman is vicious. She had to take the opportunity to get rid of me. If you didn't appear, I would definitely have died in their hands. Young Master Su looked at Master Su and his wife with grief and indignation. The couple was also filled with fear. I see. Qin Feiyang nodded inside. I have to say, you are the most pitiful person I have ever met. I am not pitiful. I only hate myself for being useless, for being weak, and for being stupid. I thought that as long as I continued to endure, I would be able to slowly move them. But the reality was not like that. My tolerance has become their capital to become even worse. Young Master Su roared. Qin Feiyang looked deeply at young Master Su and said with a smile, Then do you know where your Su family's treasury is? Treasure vault. The Su family's patriarch and his wife's eyes trembled. They immediately glared at young Master Su with undisguised threats in their eyes. Young Master Su looked at the two of them and saw the threat in their eyes. The anger in his heart grew even stronger. He then looked at Qin Feiyang and nodded. Understood. If it was in the past, he would definitely not have answered Qin Feiyang truthfully. But now, for the Su family and the Su family's patriarch, he was already disheartened and no longer had any thoughts. Okay. Take me there. When the time comes, I promise to do one thing for you. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. Young Master Su nodded. Unfilial son, unfilial son. The Su family's patriarch suddenly roared. I have already been expelled from the Su family by you. What's the point of saying this? Since it's a break, then don't blame me for being heartless. Young Master Su smiled coldly and looked at Qin Feiyang. The treasury is at the back of the mountain. I will take you there. Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded and looked at Madman with a smile. Senior brother, take them with us. This is too troublesome, just kill them. Madman frowned. Hearing this, Qin Feiyang looked at young Master Su and asked, What do you think? The Su family's patriarch and his wife suddenly looked at young Master Su. They never thought that their life and death would fall into the hands of this evil creature. Young Master Su looked at the two with resentment in his eyes and said, Let them stay first. Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded. Really troublesome. Madman shook his head. So, under the leadership of young Master Su, the group rushed to the back of the Su family's mountain. And only the Su family's patriarch and his wife were brought along. As for those guards and maids, Madman didn't even have the mood to kill them. Go and inform the city lord's mansion. With the departure of Madman, the blood demon domain also disappeared, and a group of guards immediately roared. Su family's back mountain. This place was bigger than the back mountain of the imperial palace. The mountains were undulating, and the vegetation was lush. But in the mountain, there were no fierce beasts. But at the entrance of the back mountain, there were guards guarding. When they saw Qin Feiyang and the others, the guards guarding the entrance suddenly had a look of surprise. How did the patriarch and his wife fall into such a situation? Patriarch, the guards rushed up. Get lost, Madman shouted coldly, and with a slap, those guards were immediately slapped away and smashed into the ground. So powerful. Young Master Su murmured, then raised his head to look at the back mountain with a trace of deep fear in his eyes. He whispered, Two brothers, you have to be careful, this back mountain is not simple. Not simple. Qin Feiyang and Madman were stunned. Yes, The Sioux family's elders are all cultivating in the back mountain. Their cultivation is at the imperishable stage. The Sioux family's ancestor is an imperishable stage expert at the perfection stage. Young Master Sioux said. Perfection stage? Madman was slightly stunned, and his face was full of disdain. Qin Feiyong also smiled slightly, and then stepped straight into the back mountain. Seeing the calm attitude of the two, young Master Su's eyes also had a trace of surprise. What kind of means did these two have to be so fearless? What should we do next? Qin Feiyong looked at young Master Su, who was in a daze, and asked. Young Master Su came back to his senses and hurriedly pointed to the front. Go deeper, we'll see a group of pavilions. Qin Feiyong immediately used the walk word art and rushed deep into the back mountain. In just 10 breaths, a group of pavilions came into sight. The pavilions were located in the mountains, surrounded by green vegetation and streams, like a fairyland. And in those pavilions, Qin Feiyong sensed at least 100 imperishable stage auras. Among them, there was one at the perfection stage. There were 10 auras at the perfection stage. The rest were at the greater success, initial success, and half-step imperishable stage. Madman smiled. You don't say. The Su family's foundation is not simple. Yes. Qin Feiyong nodded. A perfection stage imperishable stage expert, a full perfection stage expert, in terms of quality, was stronger than the dragons. However, in the end it still couldn't compare to the dragons, because the dragons had a total of 2 sovereign divine weapons. 2 sovereign divine weapons. Even the super forces like the Demon Hall and Blood Hall of the Sky Cloud Realm didn't dare to underestimate them. Who is it? When Qin Feiyong and the others entered the sky, the Su family elder who was meditating here immediately sensed their auras. Whoosh! A figure rushed into the sky. It was a middle-aged man with a greater success stage imperishable stage cultivation. When he saw the Su family head, the woman and young Master Su, the middle-aged man was stunned and frowned. What's the matter with you? It's a long story. Quickly inform the old ancestor that this unfilial son Su Yang has brought these 2 people to rob the Su family's treasury. The Su family head roared. What? The middle-aged man looked at Qin Feiyong and Madman and frowned. Half-step imperishable stage? What kind of joke was this? Half-step imperishable stage dared to rob the Su family's treasury? Whoosh! Before the middle-aged man could speak, figures rushed out from the pavilions below. There were men and women, and all of them were murderous, because they all heard the Su family head's voice. Come to rob the Su family's treasury? They must be tired of living. However, when they saw the cultivation of Qin Feiyong and Madman, they were stunned like the middle-aged man. Seeing this, the Su family had looked at a white-haired old man and roared, Old ancestor, don't underestimate them. They are very strong, and even dared to kill people from the city lord's mansion. This white-haired old man was the Su family's old ancestor. What? They dared to kill people from the city lord's mansion. The group of elders looked at the two in shock. The white-haired old man's eyes were also full of surprise. But Qin Feiyong didn't pay attention to them. He looked at young Master Su and asked, Where is the treasury? Young Master Su swallowed his saliva and said, It's below the old ancestor's pavilion. I'll take you there. Even though Qin Feiyong and Madman appeared to be so calm, he was still quite afraid in the face of so many elders. Qin Feiyong turned to look at Madman and smiled. Then, senior brother, I'll leave this place to you? No problem. Madman waved his hand. Let's go. Qin Feiyong looked at young Master Su and smiled. Young Master Su nodded and flew down in fear. Qin Feiyong also left behind the Su family head and the woman and followed behind him. As for those elders, they were completely treated as air. Brat, you dare. Seeing this, an elder suddenly shouted and rushed towards Qin Feiyong and young Master Su. Young Master Su suddenly panicked. Don't be nervous. With my senior brother here, no one can hurt you. Qin Feiyong smiled and comforted him. Is that so? Young Master Su was a little suspicious. Jia. At the same time, Madman bared his teeth and smiled. The blood demon domain opened again and enveloped the group of elders. The Su family had suddenly changed his expression and shouted, Don't be enveloped by this barrier. And the group of elders was stunned and looked at the blood demon domain suspiciously. This barrier can forcibly deprive 5 small realms of cultivation. The Su family head roared. What? Deprive 5 small realms of cultivation? The group of elders suddenly changed their expressions. Even the old ancestor of the Su family was the same. However, it was already too late to realize this. The blood demon domain instantly fell, and all their cultivation began to plummet. At the same time, Madman took a step forward, and like a ghost, he arrived behind the elder, who was charging towards Qin Feiyang and Qin Feiyang. With a palm strike, the elder's sea of qi shattered on the spot with a cracking sound. This power. The elder was shocked and immediately judged the strength of Madman's body and quickly reminded, be careful, his body and strength are different from ordinary people. The old ancestor of the Su family roared. Even so what? Kill him. Boom. The group of elders suddenly burst out with a terrifying aura and madly rushed towards Madman. As for the old ancestor of the Su family, with monstrous anger, he rushed towards Qin Feiyang and young Master Su. His old eyes were filled with strong killing intent. Chapter 30-24. Not good. Seeing the old ancestor of the Su family coming, young Master Su became nervous again. Because in the Su family, the old ancestor of the Su family was a godlike existence. Everyone was afraid of him. It's really nothing, just lead the way. Qin Feiyang was helpless. This was too cowardly. Just like this, he still wanted to enter the demon palace? Dream on. Although he had never been to the demon palace, he could imagine that it must be a very cruel place. In this kind of place, without some means and courage, it was impossible to survive. Hearing this, young Master Su continued to fly downwards in fear. This was a fear that had accumulated for many years. So no matter what Qin Feiyang said, he couldn't help but panic. Old man, do you think I don't exist? Madman glanced at the old ancestor of the Su family and took a step forward. His aura roared in all directions, and the group of elders who were charging towards him were instantly thrown off their feet. Because these people's cultivation had already plummeted to the 9 heavens realm. With the cultivation of the 9 heavens realm, how could they withstand his aura? Shua. Following closely, Madman took a step towards the old ancestor of the Su family. The old ancestor of the Su family still had a half-step undying realm cultivation. After all, he was at the great perfection undying realm. His speed was not inferior to Madman's, because he also had a supreme level auxiliary divine art. He also thought that Madman couldn't catch up to him. After all, their cultivation and divine art were the same. But he underestimated Madman's means. Boom. The blood demon technique was activated. Madman's cultivation directly soared to the initial undying realm. Yes, he didn't fully activate the blood demon technique, but only raised it by a small realm. Because the blood demon technique was fully activated, it could raise it by 3 small realms. However, it was enough to raise it by 1 small realm. Shua. Immediately, his speed soared, and in an instant, he was in front of the old ancestor of the Su family. In the undying realm, the difference between each small realm was like heaven and earth. Although Madman was now 1 small realm higher than the old ancestor of the Su family, his speed was completely crushing. What? The old ancestor of the Su family looked at Madman, who suddenly appeared in front of him, with a face of disbelief. Ignoring me and going straight to old Qin, how much do you look down on me? Madman's eyes turned cold as he slapped towards old ancestor Su's head. Old ancestor Su gritted his teeth and punched towards Madman. Originally, he didn't dare to clash head-on with the Madman, because the elder had warned them that the Madman's physical body was different from ordinary people. However, he had no other choice. He had to get rid of the Madman before he could stop Qin Feiyang and young Master Su. However, he had overestimated himself. Fist and palm met in an instant. The Madman's monstrous power instantly surged forth with a momentum that could topple mountains and overturn seas. Puff! The old ancestor of the Su family immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. You're courting death. He was unable to restrain his anger. With a loud clang, a giant golden sword appeared and slashed at the madman. A mere supreme-grade god artifact is not enough. Madman's lips curled up as he grabbed the giant sword and punched towards old ancestor Su's stomach. Ah! Accompanied by a scream, the Su family's old ancestor's sea of chi shattered on the spot. He's too strong. He's my idol. Looking at the invincible lunatic, young Master Su's face was filled with admiration. Meanwhile, somewhere in the void, Elder Hu looked at the madman's performance with a trace of surprise on his face. Depriving 5 small realms of a terrifying god art, as well as a god art that could increase cultivation. If he didn't have a god artifact in god art, who in the undead realm would be his opponent? In other words, the madman's strength was enough to dominate the undead realm. What surprised him the most was the madman's battle awareness. With one look, he knew that he had climbed out of a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. It seemed that this man was indeed a talent. However, he seemed to be a little bit away from being a genius. Compared to Qin Feiyang, there seemed to be a little bit of a gap. What he didn't know was that what he saw now was just the tip of the iceberg of the madman. Even the blood demon art was not complete. He also didn't know that the blood demon realm and the blood demon art, these terrifying god arts, were created by the madman himself. If he knew, then he definitely wouldn't think so. Outside, the madman was like a demonic god, causing all the elders of the Su family to be in a state of panic. Qin Feiyang and young Master Su went straight into the attic of the Su family's old ancestor. The layout of the room was quite simple. Young Master Su went straight to the center of the hall, looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "The treasure house is below. Then do you know how to open it?" Qin Feiyang asked. "I don't know about this." Young Master Su shook his head. Qin Feiyang scanned the hall. There must be a mechanism in this place, but there was no need to find it now. He summoned the golden scale sword and directly slashed down. The ground immediately cracked open. What kind of god artifact is this so sharp? Young Master Su was dumbfounded. This ground was unusual. The Su family's old ancestor used divine power to refine it. Even if they were in the peak undead realm, they might not be able to break it. But the sword in this man's hand was as simple as cutting tofu. The golden scale sword did not awaken, nor did it have any aura. So young Master Su did not recognize that this was a god artifact. Qin Feiyang did not explain. He put away the golden scale sword and looked down. A secret room of about 100 feet immediately came into sight. In the stone room, there were no less than 1,000 interspatial rings, and even more interspatial bags. Not bad. Qin Feiyang chuckled, waved his hand, and sent all the interspatial rings and interspatial bags to the Black Tortoise world. He said, "Big Black Wolf, you guys tidy it up." "Okay." Big Black Wolf replied. Now Big Black Wolf, Black Panther, Pai Lupi, and Theta Wong were in charge of the affairs of the Black Tortoise world, so there was no need to look for Fire Lotus for such a small matter. Then, Qin Feiyang turned and walked out. Young Master Su hurriedly followed behind Qin Feiyang. "Done." Seeing Qin Feiyang come out, Madman grinned. "Yes." Qin Feiyang nodded. "I just took a look. There are still a lot of spirit veins and crystal veins underground. Why don't we take them away?" Madman said. "Spirit veins, crystal veins," Qin Feiyang murmured as he scanned the ground under his feet. Although there were already a lot of spirit veins and crystal veins in the Black Tortoise world, the Black Tortoise world was growing every day, becoming more and more vast. So in the future, there would be more and more spirit veins and crystal veins. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang released his divine sense and rushed into the ground. Immediately, there was a trace of surprise in his eyes. The spirit veins and crystal veins below were at least rank 5 divine level, and there were a lot of them, about 5 to 600. A mere family in Tianfeng City actually had so many spirit veins and crystal veins? Then as the strongest force in the eastern continent, how many did the Demon Palace have? Qin Feiyang shook his head. Why did he unconsciously think of the Demon Palace? What was he thinking about all day long? Was the Demon Palace someone he could offend? He had to get rid of this thought quickly. He had already offended a blood hall. If he offended the Demon Palace, then there would be no place for them in the Tianyan realm. Qin Feiyang soared into the sky and his divine power poured into the ground. What is he doing? Could it be? You bastard, my Su family will not let you go. The Su family patriarch and the others looked at Qin Feiyang's actions and immediately roared. But Qin Feiyang turned a deaf ear to them. With a wave of his hand, spirit veins and crystal veins quickly appeared from the ground. Then he sent them all to the Black Tortoise world. Damn it, damn it. The Su family's old ancestor was furious. But since his Qi was destroyed, he could only watch as Qin Feiyang frantically looted. In just a few breaths, the meridians and spirit veins in the back mountain were all looted by Qin Feiyang. At this time, Qin Feiyang just looked at the group of people from the Su family and laughed. You can't blame me for this. It's you who didn't take the 100 billion spirit stones. So it's still our fault? The Su family patriarch roared. Otherwise it's still my fault. You guys, why do you refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit? You have to force us to be serious. This is great, the treasury is gone. The spirit veins and crystal veins are also gone. The next time you encounter something like this, you have to remember. It's wise to give up the small for the big. Qin Feiyang laughed. Pfft. The Su family patriarch was so angry that he spat out a mouthful of blood. You spat out blood just like that? You're too weak. Madman sneered. Boom. But before he finished speaking, two terrifying divine powers descended. Qin Feiyang and the others looked up and saw two middle-aged men appear in the sky. City Lord Commander. Everyone in the Su family suddenly seemed to have seen their savior. At the same time, Madman landed in front of Qin Feiyang, and without any hesitation, he took young Master Su and flew away. City Lord, these people are too arrogant. Not only did they loot our Su family's treasury, but they also took away all our spirit veins and crystal veins. You must make a decision for us. The Su family patriarch roared. The city lord looked at the direction where Qin Feiyang and the other two left and asked, Then what's going on with your son? This is an unfilial son. I originally wanted to take him to the city lord's mansion personally to apologize. But this unfilial son actually brought them to loot our treasury. The Su family patriarch said angrily. The city lord said, Did the other person who mastered the law of space and time appear? I didn't see him. But looking at the situation, they should have separated. Otherwise, he would definitely appear now and use the law of space and time to escape. The Su family patriarch said, Without that person, it's easy to deal with. The city lord smiled coldly and took the commander with him as he stepped into the air. I'll follow and take a look. The Su family old ancestor took out a spirit sea pill and threw it into his mouth, then used his divine sense to chase after them. Back to Qin Feiyang. The three of them had already escaped outside the city and entered the mountain, but they didn't relax at all, because the city lord had already caught up. It was too easy for a half-step ruler to catch up with them, and young Master Su was even more panicked. These two people were very strong, but he also saw with his own eyes that they couldn't fight back in front of the city lord in Tianyua building. What should he do? Madman suddenly opened his mouth and laughed. Old Qin, this person is always a disaster. I'm a disaster? Young Master Su was stunned. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the city lord. Madman rolled his eyes at him. Is that so? Young Master Su breathed a sigh of relief. He thought he was talking about him. Chapter 30-25. He is indeed a calamity. Qin Feiyang nodded. If this person wasn't eliminated, there would be no end of trouble. Since that was the case, Qin Feiyang and Crazy looked at each other, a cold light flashing in their eyes. Shua. Immediately after, the two continued to head into the depths of the mountain. A while later, Shua. Suddenly, two figures appeared in front of them, blocking their path. It was the city lord and the commander. One was a half-step ruler, and the other was a perfection undying realm. Not to mention the city lord, even the commander was a terrifying existence in the ancient world. But in the Sky Cloud realm, the two were just ordinary people. Let's see how you run this time. The city lord stepped forward, and the pressure of a half-step ruler surged toward Qin Feiyang's group like a flood. Su Yang's eyes trembled, terrified to the extreme. Even a perfection undying realm like the Su family's old ancestor was a godlike existence in his eyes, let alone a half-step ruler like the city lord. Just one pressure was enough to make him fall into the abyss of despair. However, Qin Feiyang and Crazy's expressions didn't change. Do you really think we're afraid of you? Crazy smiled mockingly. The city lord looked suspiciously at the two. My lord, you can tell that they're pretending to be calm from the looks of it. Otherwise, they wouldn't have stood there in the heavenly pleasure building and waited for another youth to save them. The commander sneered. Makes sense. The city lord nodded. Crazy glanced at the commander and laughed. You seem to be very smart. So, I'm just a little smarter than you. The commander's face was full of disdain. In his eyes, Qin Feiyang and Crazy were just two clowns. The one he was truly wary of was Yun Xiang. Not only did he control the laws of space and time, he also had a heaven-defying divine artifact. A heaven-defying divine artifact, even the most ordinary low-level one, was comparable to a half-step ruler. And he was only a perfection undying realm, one step away from a half-step ruler. Although it was only one step, the difference was like heaven and earth. Therefore, in front of Yun Xiang, he had no confidence at all. But now, Yun Xiang was not here. Then the two people in front of him were equivalent to lambs waiting to be slaughtered. They were completely insignificant. Smarter than us? The madman and Qin Feiyang looked at each other, and the playfulness in their eyes deepened. This person really didn't know how to keep a low profile. My lord, take a look. They're still so arrogant even now. They're simply looking down on you. We must torture them properly. Also, didn't they loot the Su clan's treasure vault, spirit vein, and crystal vein? These treasures are all things that we've coveted for a long time. However, due to the fact that the Su clan's first young master is a demon hall disciple, it's not convenient for us to make a move. Isn't this the best opportunity? The commander looked at the city lord and said with a flattering smile. The city lord's eyes lit up. Madman was stunned. You guys are also eyeing the Su family's treasury? This Su family is just relying on the fact that they have someone backing them up. What are they if they don't have that backing? The commander sneered. As the city lord and the commander of Tianfeng City, not only do you not protect the interests of the people below, you even have crooked thoughts about them. Aren't you afraid of being ridiculed by others for doing this? Su Yang shouted angrily. He didn't dare to speak at first, but when he heard this, he couldn't help it. He never thought that the city lord and the commander were such people. As a member of Tianfeng City, he really felt heartbroken. You're just a stray dog. What right do you have to speak? The commander's face was full of disdain. Even if I'm a stray dog, I'm still better than you guys with wild ambitions. No, you guys are just animals in human skin. Su Yang's face was full of disgust. You're courting death. The commander's eyes suddenly surged with killing intent, and a terrifying divine power rushed towards Su Yang. Humph! Qin Feiyang snorted coldly and stepped in front of Su Yang, his eyes flashing with killing intent. Overestimating yourself. The commander's face was full of ridicule. Overestimating myself? Qin Feiyang shook his head and sneered. I'm just joking that you're smart. Do you really think you're smart? The commander's eyes turned cold. If even Yun Xiang's little tricks can make you guys afraid, then you don't have the qualifications to be arrogant in front of us. Because our tricks are more terrifying than Yun Xiang's. Qin Feiyang's words fell, accompanied by a loud clang, and the golden scale sword appeared. The commander originally wanted to ridicule him, saying that he was more terrifying than Yun Xiang. He didn't know his own weight. However, when he saw the sudden appearance of the golden scale sword, his pupils suddenly shrank. This seemed to be, at the same time, the city lord's pupils also shrank slightly. Clang! The golden scale sword instantly recovered, and a terrifying sharpness swept in all directions, and the divine power of the commander was instantly turned into ashes. This is a heaven-defying artifact. The commander's expression changed, and he immediately retreated behind the city lord, his eyes full of shock. This person actually had a heaven-defying artifact. At the same time, the city lord waved his hand, rolled up the commander, and flew away without looking back. City Lord Yu. The commander was bewildered. His heaven-defying artifact is even stronger than Yun Xiang's heaven-defying artifact. Yun Xiang's heaven-defying artifact is only a low-level one, but his is a high-level heaven-defying artifact. The city lord said gloomily. He never thought that Qin Feiyang would actually have such a terrifying artifact. What? High-level heaven-defying artifact? The commander turned pale with fright. This level of heaven-defying artifact was extremely rare, even in those large cities. Who exactly were they? Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed with a cold light and shouted, "Golden scale sword, cripple them!" Clang! The golden scale sword suddenly cut through the sky, and thousands of sword chi erupted, turning into a sword chi frenzy, rushing towards the two of them. Lord, quick! The commander was terrified. The city lord's eyes flashed, and suddenly grabbed the commander, and threw him towards the sword chi frenzy. Ah! Qin Feiyang and Su Yu were both stunned. The commander himself was also stunned, but he quickly reacted. The city lord was using him as cannon fodder. Surnamed Wang, you piece of shit. I was so loyal to you, but you dare to treat me like this? I won't let you go even if I die. The commander roared, and a destructive aura charged out of his body. Boom! In the next instant, his physical body exploded in the air, and a terrifying aura instantly flooded the surroundings. Not good. Qin Feiyang's pupils constricted, and he immediately brought the madman and Su Yang into the Black Tortoise world. The self-destruction of an imperishable realm expert, especially one at the peak stage of the imperishable realm, was comparable to a half-step ruler. However, the city lord was not so lucky. Even though he was fast enough, he was still affected by the aftershock of the commander's self-destruction. Pooh! He spat out a mouthful of blood. However, he did not stop and continued to run. Right now, he only hoped that the ripples from the commander's self-destruction could block the golden scale sword for a while. However, the golden scale sword was a high-grade divine artifact, comparable to an early-stage ruler. How could the self-destruction of a mere peak-stage imperishable realm expert block it? Clang! Accompanied by a sword cry, the golden scale sword easily shattered the ripples from the commander's self-destruction, and then like a flash of light, it pierced through the city lord's lower abdomen. Ah! Immediately, the city lord wailed as his sea of vital energy shattered, and his cultivation dissipated. The golden scale sword was placed in front of him, emitting a sharp aura that terrified the city lord. Don't kill me! Swish! At this moment, when Qin Feiyang appeared, he grabbed the city lord and disappeared without a trace with the golden scale sword. What's going on? This seems to be the commander's aura. Could it be that he self-destructed? In the distance, the Su family's old ancestor stopped in the air, looking at the collapsed mountains and rivers in front of him in shock. He originally wanted to follow and see if there was a chance to kill Qin Feiyang and Su Yu with his own hands. But he didn't expect that before he even got close, a terrifying destructive wave would erupt in front of him. The owner of this wave was a commander, which made him even more shocked. The commander actually self-destructed? What was going on? He didn't dare to get closer, nor could he get closer, because the fluctuations from the commander's self-destruction were enough to shatter his bones. Black Tortoise Realm. Where is this? The city lord scanned his surroundings, his eyes full of surprise. Su Yang was the same. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Welcome to my space divine object. Space divine object? This is too big. The two of them were shocked. Even a half-step dominator couldn't see the end. And the essence chi energy and soul vein energy here were not much worse than outside. Do you want to die or live? Qin Feiyang looked at the city lord and asked with a smile. The city lord's body stiffened, and only then did he remember his situation. Now that his sea of vital energy was destroyed, and he was captured in this space divine object, unless he mastered the laws of space and time, he couldn't escape even if he went to heaven or earth. No, I still have divine soul. A trace of killing intent appeared in the city lord's heart. With his half-step dominator divine soul, he could easily kill the two in front of him. Clang! But just as this thought appeared in his mind, the golden scale sword let out a sword hum and pointed at his forehead. The tip of the sword was almost touching his forehead. That terrifying sharpness caused his divine soul to immediately surge with an inescapable fear. Do you know what will happen if you play tricks in front of me? Qin Feiyong looked at him mockingly. I wouldn't dare, I wouldn't dare. The city lord hurriedly waved his hand. Fine. Seeing that your cultivation isn't bad, I'll reluctantly take you in as my subordinate. Qin Feiyong smiled faintly. Reluctantly? The city lord couldn't help but go crazy. He was at least a half-step dominator. Was there a need to force him so much? Don't resist, otherwise if the golden scale sword gets angry, even I won't be able to control it. Qin Feiyong waved his hand, and a slave seal appeared. This is... The city lord's eyes flashed. He didn't need to think to know that this was a kind of control secret technique. Qin Feiyong's eyes suddenly turned cold, and he shouted, Golden scale sword, kill him for me. Clang! The tip of the golden scale sword instantly sank into the city lord's forehead, and blood spurted out. Don't kill me! The city lord roared in horror. Stop! Qin Feiyong stretched out his hand. The golden scale sword immediately stopped. At this moment, the tip of the sword was only a paper away from the city lord's sea of consciousness. Are you obedient now? Qin Feiyong asked with a smile. Yes, yes, yes. The city lord nodded repeatedly, terrified. The blade was on his neck. How could he dare to not be obedient? Qin Feiyong smiled faintly, and with a wave of his hand, the slave seal immediately turned into a stream of light and sank into the city lord's head. Chapter 30:26. During the process of being controlled, the city lord wanted to resist again and again, but under the threat of the golden scale sword, he finally gave up on this thought. The control was successfully completed. Qin Feiyong secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He looked at the golden scale sword and smiled. Go! Swoosh! The golden scale sword instantly turned into a ray of light and disappeared into the sky. As long as the slave seal was successfully controlled, no matter how strong the other party was, he was not afraid. Introduce yourself. Qin Feiyong looked at the city lord and said indifferently. This subordinate is Wang Hui, half-step sovereign realm, Tianfeng city lord, and I have a son Wang Feng. At this moment, the city lord also appeared extremely respectful. Wang Hui, Qin Feiyong muttered and asked, what law do you grasp? Metal law. Wang Hui replied. Just this one? Qin Feiyong was suspicious. What else? Wang Hui asked. To be able to comprehend a law and reach the perfection realm. This was already very good, okay? Qin Feiyong shook his head and smiled. Then after breaking through to half-step sovereign realm, how do you cultivate? Madman couldn't help but be curious when he heard this. Wang Hui looked at the two of them suspiciously and said, You guys even have high-grade heaven-defying divine artifacts, don't you know this? In his opinion, since the two of them had high-grade heaven-defying divine artifacts, their family backgrounds were definitely not simple. But why did it seem like they were two noobs now? Madman said angrily. I told you to speak, why are you talking so much nonsense? Okay. Wang Hui hurriedly nodded and said, After stepping into half-step sovereign realm, if you want to break through again, you must comprehend another law. Qin Feiyong and Madman looked at each other. They actually needed to comprehend another law. Qin Feiyong looked at Wang Hui and said, Can we understand that after breaking through to half-step sovereign realm, you need to comprehend another law every time you break through a small realm? Yes. For example me. Now that I have grasped the metal law, if I want to break through to initial sovereign realm, I have to comprehend another law. And I have to completely comprehend it. Wang Hui nodded. Doesn't that mean that a newly ascended ruler can control two types of law energies? Madman frowned. Yes. In any case, after becoming a half-step ruler, every step of cultivation is related to the power of laws. For example, the perfect sovereigns of our sky cloud realm are supreme existences that have grasped 6 types of laws. Apart from sovereign weapons, no one is a match for them. Wang Hui said with a look of admiration. I see. Qin Feiyong and Madman looked at each other. Who would have thought that he would have to continue comprehending the laws after reaching the sovereign realm in order to achieve a breakthrough? Madman asked. What if you can't comprehend other laws? If you can't comprehend any other laws, your cultivation will forever remain at the half-step ruler level. Just like me, you can only stay in a small place like Wind City and be a small city lord. Wang Hui shook his head. That's not right. Even a half-step ruler should be considered very strong in the sky cloud realm. Madman was suspicious. It's all right. Wang Hui hesitated for a moment before saying, if that's the case, then why are you staying in Wind City as the city lord? I think that with your strength, you should be able to enter the demon palace. Madman looked at him in confusion. Wang Hui shook his head and said, I don't belong to the demon palace, but I belong to another faction. What faction? Madman was surprised. There were other super factions in the eastern continent? Qin Feiyang suddenly said, you should belong to the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, right? Rogue Cultivator Alliance? Madman was stunned. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and said, I only know a little about it from Luo Tianshan's memories. Yes. Wang Hui nodded. Madman asked suspiciously, what's the Rogue Cultivator Alliance? In the beginning, the Rogue Cultivator Alliance was formed by a few hidden experts to fight against the Demon Palace. Because the Demon Palace was too domineering. But later, as it slowly grew, the alliance became stronger and stronger. Today, although our Rogue Cultivator Alliance is still inferior to the Demon Palace, the Demon Palace doesn't dare to look down on us. In short, our Rogue Cultivator Alliance is the second super faction in the Eastern Continent. Wang Hui said. So that's how it is. Madman nodded in understanding. And our Rogue Cultivator Alliance not only controls a lot of resources in the Eastern Continent, but we also control the various large cities. Even super large cities like Ocean of Cloud City are the territory of independent cultivators like us. In any case, in the current situation, the Demon Palace and our Rogue Cultivator Alliance don't interfere with each other and live together. Wang Hui smiled proudly. As a member of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, he was very proud. Madman teased. Are you saying so much to tell us that it's best to let you go immediately, or the Rogue Cultivator Alliance won't let us go? I'm not. Wang Hui hurriedly shook his head. But in fact that was what he meant. He wanted to use the Rogue Cultivator Alliance to threaten Qin Feiyang and Madman. It's best if you don't. Not to mention your Rogue Cultivator Alliance. We aren't even afraid of the true overlord of the Eastern Continent, the Demon Palace. Madman sneered. Wang Hui's gaze trembled. How confident did he have to be to dare to say such lawless words? He wasn't even afraid of the Demon Palace. Could it be that they were from the Blood Hall of the Western Continent, the Sky Hall of the Northern Continent, or the God Hall of the Southern Continent? No. If they were really from these three overlords, then they definitely wouldn't dare to be so high profile in the Eastern Continent. Because the Demon Palace, Blood Hall, Sky Hall, and God Hall were enemies. If they dared to come to the Eastern Continent to cause trouble, wouldn't they be courting death? Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Then tell us, what exactly are the people from the Demon Palace? Demon Palace? They're just a bunch of selfish people. Wang Hui snorted coldly. What do you mean? Qin Feiyang was curious. Before our Rogue Cultivator Alliance appeared, the Demon Palace was the only overlord. All the resources were in their hands. Ordinary people like us have to get their permission if we want resources. Now, although the Demon Palace is still the overlord of the Eastern Continent, at least the resources can be distributed reasonably. Wang Hui said. Is that so? I feel that it's no different from when the Demon Palace was the only overlord. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Why? Wang Hui frowned. Although the Demon Palace gave up a portion of the resources, these resources didn't fall into the hands of ordinary people directly. Instead, they went into the hands of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. In short, the ones who benefited were the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, not ordinary people. The lives of ordinary people are still the same. Qin Feiyang said faintly. I don't agree, because the Rogue Cultivator Alliance is in charge of all the major cities. Our goal is to benefit ordinary people. Wang Hui shook his head. Aren't you embarrassed to say that? Someone like you who even wants to take the Su family's business for yourself has the cheek to say that you're benefiting the people. Su Yang suddenly sneered. Wang Hui looked at Su Yang angrily. He's speaking the truth. Perhaps the Rogue Cultivator Alliance's goal was indeed to benefit the people. However, as you continue to grow stronger, you've long forgotten this original goal. Now all that's left is ambition, selfishness, and greed. Qin Feiyang shook his head and sighed. Humans were basically like this. After getting something, they would want more. Ambition, desire, they were endless. Heard. Wang Hui smiled awkwardly. Although he didn't want to admit it, the Rogue Cultivator Alliance's style was indeed like that. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and asked, "Do you have the Shangqing Creation Pill and the Dragon Phoenix Divine Pill?" "No." Wang Hui shook his head. Madman raised his eyebrows and looked at Wang Hui unkindly. "You're the city lord. How could you not have these pills?" "I really don't. The Dragon Phoenix Divine Pill can only increase the cultivation of the imperishable realm. I'm just a half-step dominator. Why would I need it?" As for the Shangqing Creation Pill, this pill is also used to open the door to the imperishable realm. It's useless for me to keep it. Wang Hui hurriedly explained. "That makes sense." Madman nodded. Wang Hui's eyes flashed and said, "The Demon Tower sells these 2 pills. Why don't you go there and buy them?" At the same time, Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed slightly, because he was peeking into Wang Hui's heart. When Wang Hui said these words, his inner thoughts were also spied on by him. Through Wang Hui's thoughts, he understood that it was as he had expected. The Shangqing Creation Pill was a bait set up by the Demon Tower. And Wang Hui wanted to make use of this, to make the Demon Hall target them. Because, if they really went to the Demon Tower to buy the Shangqing Creation Pill, it would definitely attract the attention of the Demon Hall. At that time, the people of the Demon Hall would target him, and his life might be in danger. As long as he died, the control of the slavery seal would naturally be removed. This was what Wang Hui was thinking. Qin Feiyang didn't expose him and said indifferently, "If I have to do such a small thing personally, then why would I keep you alive?" Wang Hui's body trembled when he heard this. 3 days later, "I want to see 100 Dragon Phoenix Divine Pills and 100 Shangqing Creation Pills. Otherwise, I will directly erase your soul," Qin Feiyang said. "So much?" Wang Hui immediately panicked. Not to mention the bait, just the price of these 100 Dragon Phoenix Divine Pills and the Shangqing Creation Pill was not something he could afford. The reason for that was because every single one of those medicinal pills was priceless. "I don't care so much. In any case, I will go to the City Lord's mansion to look for you in 3 days. If I don't see these things, then bear the consequences," Qin Feiyang said indifferently and sent Wang Hui out. "Bastard, just you wait. If I don't kill you, I won't be called Wang Hui." Wang Hui stood in the void outside, killing intent flashing in the depths of his eyes. Then with a gloomy face, he flew towards Tianfeng City. "You want to kill me? All right, then let's see who will kill who in the end." Qin Feiyang sneered. Hearing this, Frenzy looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. "Who wants to kill you? Who else can it be?" "It's that Wang Hui." Qin Feiyang shook his head. "He still has such thoughts." Frenzy was stunned. "Of course. He's not honest at all." Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. "Then you can't be careless. After all, he is from the Rogue Cultivator Alliance." Frenzy said, "Don't worry. I will always peek into his heart. I want to see what kind of tricks he can play." Qin Feiyang smiled coldly. "You like to be smart, right? Then I will play with you." Chapter 30-27. Su Yang, who was at the side, looked at Qin Feiyang and Li Qia suspiciously the entire time. How did they know what Wang Hui was thinking? Madman glanced at Su Yang and sent a message. "What about him?" Qin Feiyang was silent for a while before asking Su Yang, "What's your name?" "Su Yang." Su Yang quickly replied. Qin Feiyang asked, "What are your plans now?" Su Yang lowered his head, not knowing what to do. Madman thought, "Seeing how pitiful he is, why don't we let him stay? There are many pitiful people in the world. Plus, this isn't a shelter." Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes. Don't you have any compassion? Is there anyone more pitiful than him? Plus, the black tortoise world is so big. How much space can he take up? Madman was speechless. No means no. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Up to you. Madman waved his hand and prepared to leave. Wait. Suddenly, Su Yang looked up at Madman. What? Madman looked at him suspiciously. Su Yang knelt down in the air and said respectfully, I want to be your disciple. What? Be my disciple? Madman pointed at his nose with a shocked expression. Qin Feiyang was also stunned on the spot. How could he have imagined that this kid would actually make such a decision? Please accept me, Su Yang said sincerely. Wait. Madman quickly waved his hand and said, let me take a break. Okay. Su Yang looked at Madman nervously. Madman scratched his head as if he was not used to it. He frowned and said, Are you sure you want to be my disciple? Yes. Su Yang nodded. Why? Madman frowned. Because you're strong, Su Yang said. Madman grinned and smiled. That sounds good. Does that mean you agree? Su Yang was pleasantly surprised. Don't. Madman quickly stopped him and said speechlessly. Then why don't you be old Qin's disciple? This. Su Yang looked at Qin Feiyang and seemed to be in a difficult position. Speak your mind, Madman said. Su Yang still did not dare to speak. Speak. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Su Yang gathered his courage and looked at Madman. He's not as strong as you. Ugh. Qin Feiyang was stunned. Madman was also a bit surprised. And then he said, he has a high-grade heaven-defying divine artifact. The heaven-defying divine artifact is just a worldly possession. It doesn't represent one's strength. But you're different. I saw your strength with my own eyes. Besides, didn't he call you senior brother? Then you must be stronger than him. Su Yang said. Qin Feiyang said in astonishment. Wait, I call him senior brother. Should he be stronger than me? What kind of logic was this? Su Yang said. But the ability he displayed is indeed stronger than yours. Qin Feiyang was speechless. But thinking back, it was true that he did not display his strength in front of Su Yang. Because the one who attacked was Madman. And he was like a bystander. Haha. Madman suddenly laughed and gave Su Yang a thumbs up. Kid, you have good eyes. Seeing this, Su Yang thought that Madman had agreed and quickly kowtowed. Disciple greets. Stop. Madman's face darkened. This kid was really going with the flow. Su Yang was stunned and looked suspiciously at Madman. Madman rubbed his forehead. First, tell me, why did you want to take me as your master? Didn't I just say it? Because you're strong. I want to stay by your side and let you teach me cultivation. Su Yang said. Then you can go find someone else. I'm just a half-step immortal. What right do I have to be your master? Madman frowned. I can't find anyone right now. Su Yang smiled. From what you're saying, if you find someone else, you'll immediately change your master. Madman was stunned. No. A master for a day is a father for life. How could I do such a heartless thing? Let's talk about it later. Although you're only a half-step Undying Realm cultivator, you're capable of instantly killing a complete Undying Realm cultivator. And I'm just a half-step 9th Heaven Realm, so you definitely have the right. Su Yang quickly said. That's true. Madman nodded with a smile. Then how many years have you been cultivating? How many years? Su Yang paused and pondered for a bit. I've been cultivating since I was young. It's probably been more than 100,000 years. What's that? You're an antique that's lived for more than 100,000 years? Madman looked at Su Yang in shock. Antique. Su Yang looked at Madman. Why was he called an antique? Wasn't that normal? Which 9th Heaven Realm didn't cultivate for tens of thousands or decades? He was already pretty good. No, your talent isn't that good. I'm afraid I can't teach you. You should go find old Qin. The madman shook his head and vanished as soon as he finished speaking. Su Yang froze and turned to look at Qin Feiyang. If even senior brother Madman can't teach you, then I definitely can't. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Su Yang hurriedly said, I know how to refine pills. 7th grade divine tier pill furnace and 7th grade divine tier pill fire. You can only refine pills with 10 veins. Your talent isn't that great. Qin Feiyang said. I. Su Yang lowered his head with a bitter expression. That's right. With his talent, how could others take a liking to him? Qin Feiyang pondered for a bit and smiled. How about this? Don't you want to enter the demon palace? I'll give you this chance. Su Yang immediately looked up and looked at Qin Feiyang in shock. The demon palace has many experts and resources. It's better for you to enter the demon palace than follow us. Qin Feiyang smiled and took out a token and handed it to Su Yang. It was the identity token that Chu Yin gave him. Su Yang took the token and looked at the word demon on it. His pupils constricted as he exclaimed, "This is the demon palace's token?" Qin Feiyang nodded. You're from the demon palace? Su Yang looked at Qin Feiyang in shock. No. This was given to me by someone from the demon palace. This person seems to be quite powerful. Take this token back to Tianfeng City and look for the tower master of the demon palace. She might really help you. When you go back, remember to hide your identity so that your family won't find out. Qin Feiyang smiled. When Su Yang heard this, he lowered his head and looked at the other side of the token. When he saw the word yin, he couldn't help but be stunned. Yin, what did that mean? That's all I can help you with. The rest is up to you. After Qin Feiyang finished speaking, he waved his hand and sent Su Yang out. Su Yang regained his senses and realized that he had already left the spatial divine object. He couldn't help but feel disappointed. If he could really enter the demon palace, that would be for the best. However, judging from Qin Feiyang's tone just now, he didn't seem very sure either. If this token was useless at that time, then where should he go? He suddenly realized that there was no place for him in such a large world. Sigh. With a sigh, he put away the medallion, turned around, and left in a lonely manner. In the evening, Demon Palace. The woman in white was busy in the study room. Dong. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Come in, the woman in white said. The door opened, and a staff member brought an ordinary-looking young man in. What's the matter? The woman in white looked at the two of them and asked. The staff member pointed at the young man and said, He said he has something to see you about. The woman in white looked at the young man suspiciously and waved to the staff member with a smile. Then you can go out and do your work. Yes. The staff member nodded in response, then turned around and left, closing the door behind him. Speak, what's the matter? The woman in white smiled. The young man hesitated for a moment, then gritted his teeth, took out a facial restoration pill, and threw it into his mouth. Very soon a familiar face appeared. Who else could it be but Su Yang? It's you. The woman in white looked at Su Yang in surprise. Shh. Su Yang hurriedly made a shushing gesture. The Su family was looking for him everywhere. If the Su family knew that he was in the demon palace, they would definitely bring people over. At that time, no one would be able to help him. The woman in white was stunned and shook her head. You still dare to come back? As the owner of the demon palace, he naturally knew what happened to the Su family. Su Yang lowered his head and said, If I told you that I was forced, would you believe me? Those two people who robbed the Su family forced you? The woman in white asked. No. It's not them, it's the Su family. They didn't treat me as a human at all. They even cut ties with me and wanted to send me to the city lord's mansion. In the end, it was those two people who saved me. Su Yang's face was filled with hatred. So they are still good people? The woman in white was surprised. I don't know in the eyes of others, but in my eyes, they are good people. The Su family deserved it. Su Yang snorted. The woman in white shook her head and smiled, asking, Then why are you here? Su Yang was a little hesitant. Is it about entering the demon palace? I haven't reported this matter yet, and I believe you should know that even if I report it, you might not be able to enter the demon palace. The woman in white said. Su Yang gritted his teeth and took out the token. Who cared if it worked or not? He would take the risk. Please take a look at this. Su Yang took the token and handed it to the woman in white. The woman in white looked at it suspiciously, and when she saw the token, her pupils immediately shrank. Immediately after, she stood up and grabbed the token. When she saw the word yin on it, Her expression changed. Su Yang was surprised. Why was her reaction so big? How is this possible? The woman in white murmured and raised her head to look at Su Yang, asking, "Who gave you this token?" "It's those two people," Su Yang said. "How did they get this token?" The woman in white murmured, her face full of surprise. She asked, "Where are they now?" "Before we parted, they were outside the city. But I don't know. Why? Is this token very important?" Su Yang looked at the woman in white doubtfully. "It's very important, very important." The woman in white nodded and looked at the token for a while, sighing. "I'm really blind. I didn't even notice such an important person. Then who are they?" Su Yang was even more surprised. "I don't know who they are either, but the existence of this token." The woman in white pondered for a while and waved her hand. "Go out for a while and close the door." "Okay." Su Yang nodded and looked at the token in the woman's hand suspiciously. He turned and walked out. Chapter 30:28. After Su Yang left, the woman in white immediately took out the voice transmission stone. Buzz. A moment later, a shadow appeared. It was a woman in a white dress. She was tall and extremely beautiful. "I'm Li Yunxia, the Tower Master of Tianfeng City. Greetings, Miss Yin." The woman in white bowed. "What's the matter?" Chu Yin sat on a chair and yawned listlessly. Li Yunxia hurriedly said, "I'm sorry to disturb your rest." "It's okay. If you have something to say it quickly." Chu Yin waved her hand. Li Yunxia took a deep breath and showed the token in her hand. She said respectfully, "Miss, please take a look." Chu Yin looked at the token and said indifferently, "This is my token. What's wrong?" "But why is your token in his hands?" Li Yunxia was surprised. "This is my gift to him." Chu Yin smiled faintly. "I see." Li Yunxia nodded in realization. After hesitating for a moment, she asked, "May I ask who he is?" "Didn't he tell you?" Chu Yin was suspicious. "No. He only came to the Demon Tower once and caused a lot of trouble in Tianfeng City." Li Yunxia shook her head. "Is that so?" Chu Yin was slightly stunned and said with a smile, "In that case, he took out this token to ask you for help." "Ask for help?" Li Yunxia smiled bitterly. "What's with your expression?" Chu Yin frowned. "To be honest, miss, this Qin Feiyang didn't take out the token at all. Before this, I didn't even know that he was related to you. It was a person called Su Yang who came to me with this token. That's why I wanted to confirm it with you," Li Yunxia said. "I see." Chu Yin came to a realization and nodded with a smile. "You don't need this treasure. You have quite a backbone." However, just as she finished speaking, she suddenly stood up and frowned. "What did you just say? The token is in the hands of a person called Su Yang?" "Yes." Li Yunxia nodded and said, "According to Su Yang, it was Qin Feiyang who gave it to him." "Bastard." Chu Yin was furious when she heard this. She actually gave her token to someone else? One had to know that in the Eastern continent, there were countless people who wanted her token, but none of them had the honor to obtain it. Yet this fellow actually gave it to someone else. "Miss, please calm down." Seeing this, Li Yunxia quickly comforted him. Chu Yin suppressed the anger in her heart and asked, "Is Su Yang very close to him?" "Nope. I'm sure of that. Because the first time he met Su Yang was at my place. Furthermore, the time of their meeting was this morning. There was even a small conflict between them." Li Yunxia said. "This is even worse." Chu Yin's face was full of anger. His sleepy state instantly disappeared. If she had given her token to a friend or brother, she could still understand. But to actually give it to someone she had just met for less than a day, was her command token so cheap in this fellow's eyes? Li Yunxia asked cautiously, "Miss, do you want me to find him?" "What are you looking for?" "It's better for people like him who don't know what is good for them to die." Chu Yin snorted. Yes. Li Yunxia smiled apologetically. However, anyone with a discerning eye could tell that the young miss was speaking out of anger. But thinking about it, it made sense. With the young miss's identity, there were many people in the entire Eastern continent who wanted to curry favor with her. If it were anyone else, they would probably treat the young miss's token as a family heirloom. But this person actually gave it to someone he had just met for less than a day without cherishing it. How could the young miss not be angry with such a contemptuous attitude? Chu Yun took a deep breath and asked, "Why did he give it to Su Yang?" Li Yunxia said truthfully, "This Su Yang has always wanted to enter the demon palace. So I reckon that Qin Feiyang gave him the token to let him take a shortcut. Then this Su Yang's talent should be very good. In Chu Yun's opinion, to be able to make Qin Feiyang use the token, he must be someone with extraordinary talent." This, Li Yunxia was a little hesitant. "Speak." Seeing this, Chu Yun felt a little uneasy. Li Yunxia said carefully, "Then please don't be angry, young miss. This Su Yang's cultivation talent is not very good, and his alchemy talent is also very ordinary." Chu Yun was stunned, and without any suspense she exploded, and roared with her teeth gnashing. "This little bastard, I won't let him off." If it was given to a person with good talent, she could reluctantly accept it. After all, it could more or less prove the value of the token. But she never thought that it would actually be a person with ordinary talent. This was simply a waste of God's gift. Li Yunxia smiled bitterly. It was no wonder that the young miss was angry. This Qin Feiyang was indeed too childish. After a while, Chu Yun calmed down and looked at Li Yunxia. "Call that Su Yang over." "Okay." Li Yunxia nodded, looked at the door and said, "Su Yang, come in." Su Yang pushed open the door and quickly walked to Li Yunxia's side. Then, he looked at Chu Yun with a hint of surprise in his eyes. Li Yunxia said, "Quickly greet Miss Yin." Su Yang greets Miss Yin. Su Yang hurriedly bowed. Chu Yun looked at Su Yang indifferently and asked, "You've been with Qin Feiyang all this time?" Su Yang said truthfully, "Ever since I escaped from the Su family, I've been with them." Chu Yun said, "Then tell me everything about them." This, Su Yang hesitated for a moment. Cough cough. "Su Yang, this is a big shot in the Devil Palace. Whether or not you can enter the Devil Palace depends on her words." Li Yunxia hurriedly reminded him. Su Yang's heart trembled, but after struggling for a moment he shook his head and said, "I'm sorry, Miss Yin, they have done me a favor. I can't casually reveal their matters." Chu Yun looked at Su Yang in surprise. Although his talent was not good, his character was not bad. Li Yunxia was also rather surprised. She raised her head and looked at Chu Yun frowning. "Su Yang, do you still want to enter the Devil Palace?" "Yes, but I can't betray my friends." Su Yang's attitude was very firm. "You." A trace of anger appeared in Li Yunxia's eyes. All right. If you don't want to say it, then don't say it. Arrange for him to come to the Devil Palace at any time." With that, Chu Yun's silhouette disappeared. Li Yunxia shook her head and smiled bitterly. She looked at Su Yang and said, "Fortunately, Miss Yin is educated and reasonable. Otherwise, with your attitude, you'll never be able to enter the Devil Palace." However, Su Yang acted as if he did not hear it. He was in an extremely excited state. Go to the Devil Palace at any time? That meant that the other party agreed. He could enter the Devil Palace? That was too simple. "I'm talking to you." Li Yunxia frowned. Su Yang came back to his senses and looked at Li Yunxia suspiciously, asking, "What did you say?" Li Yunxia was extremely helpless. Outside the city, Black Tortoise World, Qin Feiyang stood above the medicine field and looked at the rows of courtyards beside the ancient castle. In the past, everyone basically cultivated in the ancient castle, but gradually, everyone moved out of the house. Not only was it spacious outside, but the environment was also good. They could not squeeze a few people into a cultivation room. So now, everyone had a courtyard, including the devil ancestor, Dong Junyang, Mu Qing, and Mu Tianyang. After the people of the Dragon Slayer Palace withdrew from Zhongzhou, Qin Batian, Lu Junyang, and the 54 god generals also lived here. The happiest ones were Qin Batian, Tantai Li and Qin Rushuang. Living together as a family, they were full of happiness. As for Zhongzhou, it was still empty. According to Big Black Wolf and the others, it was just in case. If there were any emergencies in the future, and they needed to transfer people in from outside, they would not have to make any arrangements. They also did not have to worry about outsiders coming in and disturbing the order of the Black Tortoise World. This kind of life is so good. Qin Feiyang sighed. This was the kind of ordinary life he wanted, one that stood aloof from worldly affairs. Unfortunately, it was still very far away. Young master! Suddenly, there was a shout of joy. Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned. He turned around and saw two middle-aged men rushing over at lightning speed. It was Wang Ming and the five-clawed golden dragon. What's made you so happy? Qin Feiyang looked at the two of them curiously. Guess. Both of them looked extremely excited. Qin Feiyang looked at the two of them suspiciously and asked, "Don't tell me you've both found your other half." The two of them were stunned. Isn't that so? Qin Feiyang laughed. How is that possible? Wang Ming was speechless and laughed. Then I won't keep you in suspense. Little Gold and I have both comprehended the power of laws. The power of laws? Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned and asked, Really? Yes. The two of them nodded. That's good. Qin Feiyang was overjoyed. What kind of power of laws did you comprehend? I comprehended the law of force. Little Gold comprehended the law of gold. Wang Ming said. The law of force? Qin Feiyang was stunned. He knew about the law of gold, but what the hell was the law of force? The law of force represents strength. My physical body and strength are already very strong. Now that I've comprehended the law of force, it's like adding wings to a tiger. Wang Ming said excitedly. I see. Qin Feiyang nodded in realization. Indeed, Wang Ming's strongest points were his physical body and strength. After obtaining the law of force, his physical body and strength would definitely be stronger in the future. The most important thing is that after comprehending the law of force, I found a way to improve my physical body to the heaven-defying level. Wang Ming said. What is it? Qin Feiyang was stunned and asked hurriedly. This was crucial. Once the physical body reached the heaven-defying level, why would he need any heaven-defying divine artifacts? With just a pair of fists, he would be invincible in the world. There's nothing you can do even if I tell you, because this can only be done after comprehending the law of force. Wang Ming smiled proudly. Show off. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes. Wang Ming chuckled and said, Okay, I won't talk to you anymore. Let's go cultivate and improve our cultivation first. Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded. The two of them entered a courtyard respectively. The law of force, Qin Feiyang murmured, and a smile gradually appeared on his face. Everyone's strength was improving. This was a good thing. Only when everyone became stronger would he have the capital to contend with Blood Hall. Chapter 30-29. Suddenly, what are you looking at standing here alone? A pleasant voice sounded. With a charming fragrance, the mermaid princess flew up and landed in front of Qin Feiyang. I'm looking at you. Qin Feiyang hugged the mermaid princess and said with a smile. My dear wife, it's time to go to the bridal chamber. The mermaid princess rolled her eyes and said with a smile. I'll take you to a place. What place? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. You'll know when we get there. The mermaid princess pulled Qin Feiyang and flew to a courtyard below. This courtyard was next to Qin Batian and Lu Xingyang's courtyard. It used to be the place where Yi Zhong's family lived. The mermaid princess landed in the courtyard with Qin Feiyang. Hundreds of flowers were blooming in the courtyard, and small trees were lush. Inside was a small two-story building with a pavilion next to it. I specially decorated this place, and these flowers and plants were all planted by me. How is it? Do you like it? The mermaid princess asked with a smile. As long as I'm with you, I like it no matter what. Qin Feiyang laughed. Glib tongue. The mermaid princess rolled her eyes at him and led Qin Feiyang into the small building. The coffee table, chairs, floor, and so on inside were all brand new. There were also many potted plants and flowers in the corners. They were full of vitality. Did you decorate this yourself? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Yes. The mermaid princess nodded. Qin Feiyang was puzzled. Master is not here. Why did you decorate it? Are you stupid? The mermaid princess was speechless. She looked around and said with a smile. This will be our home from now on. Our home? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Home? Their home? Home sounded close. But it was actually very far away, especially for someone like him who had been drifting outside all year round. Home was an extravagant hope. Over the years, he had never thought about this problem. Therefore, when he suddenly heard the mermaid princess say that this was their home, he couldn't get used to it. What's wrong? Are you not satisfied? The mermaid princess looked at Qin Feiyang anxiously. No, no, no. Qin Feiyang quickly waved his hand and looked around. Then, he looked at the mermaid princess and said apologetically, I'm sorry. Why are you apologizing? The mermaid princess looked at him suspiciously. We're already married. The first thing I should do is to give you a home. But I never thought of letting you worry about it. I'm not a qualified husband, much less a qualified man. Qin Feiyang blamed himself. He should have been the one to do all this. However, he did not expect this at all. What nonsense are you talking about? You have so many things to do. How can you take care of everything? I'll take care of these small things. The mermaid princess smiled. Thank you. Qin Feiyang held the mermaid princess in his arms. With a wife like this, what more could a husband ask for? Feiyang. At this moment, with a laugh, Qin Batian walked over. When he saw the two of them hugging, his expression suddenly became awkward. He hurriedly said, Sorry to disturb you. You can continue. The mermaid princess blushed. She quickly stared at Qin Feiyang and slapped away Qin Feiyang's evil claws. Then she smiled and said, Ancestor, you can talk. I'll make tea for you. You're not disturbing? Qin Batian asked. No, no. The mermaid princess quickly shook her head and then ran to the backyard. Qin Batian smiled and walked into the hall. He glanced around and nodded. It's arranged well. It's not bad. You came at the right time. Qin Feiyang's face was filled with displeasure. He was just about to do something to benefit his descendants. He did not expect this ancestor to come halfway. Qin Batian laughed dryly. Qin Feiyang asked Qin Batian to sit at the tea table and asked, What can I do for you? Qin Batian said, I heard that there seems to be some elixir to improve cultivation in the Tianyan realm? Yes. Dragon Phoenix elixir. Qin Feiyang nodded. Is it useful? Qin Batian asked. I don't know. I haven't tried it yet. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Then hurry up and get a few. Let me and Jinyang try it. If it's really useful, then we can directly step into the peak undead realm. Qin Batian said. That's right. Qin Feiyang slapped his head. The two ancestors were now at the peak undead realm. Once they took the Dragon Phoenix elixir, they would step into the peak. At that time, they would be able to comprehend the power of law. Then wouldn't they be able to step into the sovereign realm? Now, although they had many heaven-defying divine artifacts and the ancient castle, they did not have a single sovereign realm expert. If the two ancestors stepped into the sovereign realm, their overall strength would soar several times. Qin Batian smiled and said, And recently, I comprehended another power of law. What? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Comprehended another power of law. Qin Batian waved his hand, and a wisp of flame rose. The law of fire. Qin Feiyang was stunned. Yes, I have to thank your master for this. Back in the Black Tortoise realm, we often chatted together. He mentioned a lot about the profound meaning of the law of fire. Qin Batian smiled slightly. That's good. Qin Feiyang was overjoyed and said, Ancestor, to tell you the truth, after stepping into the sovereign realm, if you want to improve, you have to comprehend more power of law. Qin Feiyang explained the situation briefly. So after reaching the sovereign realm, you have to comprehend the power of law. Qin Batian suddenly understood. Qin Feiyang said, So the power of law is the most important thing now. It's also difficult. To be able to comprehend one power of law is already very rare. And to fully comprehend one, it takes a very long time. Not to mention stepping into the peak sovereign realm, you need 6 types of power of law. Qin Batian shook his head. It's difficult, but it's up to us. Besides, we have the time array. What are we afraid of? Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. That's true. Qin Batian nodded, then suddenly frowned and said, Speaking of the time array, after you broke through to the half-step invincible realm, why didn't the castle change? That's right. Qin Feiyang was stunned. Didn't the castle still have a seal? Logically speaking, when he broke through to the half-step invincible realm, the seal should also be removed. Back then, when he stepped into the ninth heaven's realm, the time array of the castle changed to 1 day, 1,000 years. So now it should be even stronger. But why didn't the castle have any reaction? I'll go to the castle and ask now. Qin Feiyang immediately got up and ran outside. Qin Batian was stunned, then got up and quickly followed. Where are you going? Do you still want to drink this tea? Mermaid Princess came out with a teapot and looked at the two suspiciously. No, Qin Feiyang replied without looking back. Mermaid Princess was stunned, then put down the teapot and followed out. In front of the castle, Qin Feiyang looked at the castle and said with a smile, "Shadowless, come out and have a chat." No time. The castle's voice sounded, and it didn't use telepathy. Qin Batian and Mermaid Princess also heard it. Don't be so cold. Qin Feiyang was helpless. If you have something to say, just say it. Don't beat around the bush. The castle said. Qin Feiyang smiled embarrassedly and said, "Well, I'm just here to ask about this seal. I knew you wouldn't think of me if there's nothing." The castle looked down on him. Qin Feiyang was speechless. "Look at what you're saying. I used to look for you often. But have you ever talked to me? Or is it my fault?" The castle asked. No, it's my fault. Qin Feiyang hurriedly waved his hand. The castle was silent for a while and said, "This seal can't be unlocked yet." "Why?" Qin Feiyang was suspicious. The castle said, "I need one more person." Oh, the more Qin Feiyang listened, the more puzzled he became. Besides him, who else had something to do with the castle? "You've seen it before. It's the Fire Qilin," the castle said. "Fire Qilin?" Qin Feiyang frowned. "Yes, it's the Fire Qilin you met on the Forgotten Continent." The castle replied. "What's going on? Why do I need its help?" Qin Feiyang was puzzled. Although he had always had an inexplicable sense of familiarity with the Fire Qilin, they didn't have much interaction with each other. How did it get dragged into this? You just have to look for it. Or take a drop of its Qilin blood essence, and then fuse it with your blood essence. Then you'll be able to unlock this seal. After the castle said that, it fell silent. Qin Feiyang frowned, turned his head to look at Qin Batian and the Mermaid Princess, and said, "What the hell is going on? How would we know?" The two were speechless. Fire Qilin. Qin Feiyang rubbed his forehead. Although the Fire Qilin had entered the 3rd floor of the miracle, where it was now, whether it was alive or not, it was still unknown. Where could he go to find it? Besides, now that he knew that the 4th floor was the Sky Cloud realm, it was definitely impossible to go back to the 3rd floor to find it. What he couldn't figure out the most was why it needed the blood of the Fire Qilin and his blood to unlock this seal. "Feiyang, do you think this Fire Qilin didn't die in the 3rd floor and also came to the Sky Cloud realm?" Mermaid Princess suddenly asked. Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned and frowned. "That's impossible. When it entered the 3rd floor, it didn't even have the cultivation of War God." "That's not necessarily true. What if it encountered some fortuitous encounter?" Mermaid Princess said. "This." Qin Feiyang frowned and looked at the castle. "What if the Fire Qilin is really dead?" "You can try. If it's dead, your blood alone can unlock the seal. On the contrary, if you can't unlock the seal alone, then it's still alive," the castle said. "Then let's give it a try." Qin Feiyang immediately cut his wrist. "It's essence blood, not ordinary blood," the castle reminded. "Essence blood?" Qin Feiyang was stunned, and then refined a drop of essence blood and dropped it on the ground of the castle. But after a long while, the castle didn't have any reaction. The essence blood also didn't merge with the ground of the castle. Qin Feiyang stared blankly for a moment and frowned. "Then this means that it's still alive?" The castle responded. "Then where is it now?" Qin Feiyang's face was full of surprise. It couldn't really be in the Sky Cloud realm, right? Because if it was still in the Underworld King's Hell, then as the current guardian of the Underworld King's Hell, the Fire Python would definitely be able to find it. But the Fire Python seemed to have said that it didn't find the Fire Qilin, an Uncle Beast's god. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.